G'day everyone. Welcome to episode number 21 of the Cold-Blooded Contributions podcast. The Cold-Blooded Contributions podcast is proudly sponsored by Midwest Tongs. For over 40 years, the Midwest Tongs team has provided the highest quality snake handling tools made in the USA, made by professionals for professionals. We're your hosts, the Ipers. I'm Ty Iper, and with me is my husband, Scott Iper. This podcast will bring to you people in the hobby who have made an impact on us creatively, be it artistically, with data, or improved our husbandry. Today we are stoked to have with us Chris Applin. How are you, Chris?
Very professional.
So
Do you want to tell the listeners a little bit about yourself, Chris?
Oh, yeah. So my name's Chris Applin. I'm originally from the UK, or I am from the UK. Currently live and work in Indonesia, one of the largest reptile breeding facilities over here. So yeah, that's a bit about me.
excellent.
So whereabouts in the UK did you grow up? And do you think that's affected who you are now today, or?
So when I was younger, I grew up in a place called Gloucestershire. I was super lucky. We were on like a pheasant shoot. I don't know if they have it in other parts of the world. It's like a game bird that they shoot there. So it's all like fields and stuff. And then we had a really good community of like young lads there, and we just were playing outside. It's like the early 90s, so there was no phones, no internet and stuff. So we just go run amok in the fields, you know, playing in brooks and streams and stuff, and getting into trouble with the local gamekeeper because we were annoying his game birds half the time. So yeah, we're in trouble. But yeah, I mean, I was super lucky. Like I said, it was like very, very sporadic, lots of fields and stuff to play in. And like I said, a lot of these kids today, maybe in Australia they do, but in the UK, it's so hard now just to, you know, get kids to play outside. So yeah, it was really good. And obviously I was looking under every rock and stone I could find, trying to find newts and that sort of stuff. So yeah, I'm like really lucky to have that sort of upbringing, and it was really safe as well. I mean, I don't know, parents probably have to worry a lot more with what goes on these days, but it was like really old school. It was literally come home when it gets dark, that sort of sort of environment, and make sure you're home for tea. So yeah, it was good.
Cool.
I grew up in the bush and the mountains, and yeah, I wish my kids could have had the same. They're not even luxuries, but they really are. That I had growing up, just nicking off and no internet, no nothing, no phone, no parents, just a lunch that you pinched out of the cupboard and
using your imagination, you know, making up games and stuff like that. I mean, kids these days, not to bang on, but they've got a screen from the age of like 3 or 4, it seems now. And it's like, I don't know, you just learn so much about, you know, the environment, and you get an appreciation for nature just by being out in it. So like I said, super, super lucky as a kid.
Yeah, definitely.
How did you get into reptiles, huh?
Well, funnily enough, my next door neighbor, his dad was into like birds of paradise, birds of prey and stuff. He always, sorry, that's from being Papa all the time. He used to say birds of paradise, birds of prey. And then one day he bought us a corn snake for his son. I'd always been into reptiles, but it was like a weird little myth that was going around in the UK. That like your parents would tell you is, I think it's something to do with the Dangerous Wild Animals Act, which is like the dangerous animals, like the venomous stuff, had to be licensed in the UK. But the other
There's
stuff,
some
like
weird shit on that Dangerous Animals Act list, though. Like, isn't it? Like mangrove snakes on there, but then boot snakes aren't, or something like that. And then there's some things that are really fucking hot that aren't, and then there's something that
mangroves were on there for the longest time when I was growing up. They were on there for ages. I think they've been removed now, but there's some really tricky insects and stuff on there that probably shouldn't be on there, and vice versa. I mean, I haven't looked at it for years, but yeah, it seems to be very very just whatever they think. I mean, there's like caimans on there, but then crocodile monitors aren't on there. I mean, you get bitten by a small caiman, and then you got like an 8-foot crocodile monitor. Just weird stuff like that doesn't really make sense. I mean, it's quite good because the amount of idiots over there that would just keep, you know, big cats and stuff. So it was more set up for that when, you know, pre 1970, lots of people were keeping cats and releasing them. And there's still reports in the UK now, especially in the area that I grew up in, of these wild cats that were, you know, on these big estates and stuff. So they sort of brought it into there in for that, and then obviously the reptiles got tied into it. But yeah, going back to the reptiles, I think I always got told I was interested in snakes and reptiles, obviously, but I always got told, you have to have a license to keep any reptiles. So I went round to my mate's house, and he had a corn snake. And he put this corn snake in my hand, and I don't think I've stopped talking or thinking about reptiles since then. As soon as he put it, it was just a transformation of that corn snake just being able to actually hold a snake. And it was just like, that was it. It's all my mum had heard about probably for the last 30 years then is reptiles. And she was really good. She was into animals anyway. And she was like, that's fine. You can have a snake, but I want you to read. We're going to go to, it was Pets at Home or something. You're going to buy every book on these corn snakes. And I want you to read it. And I'll give you a test at the end of it. If you can answer these questions, I'll let you have the snake. And back to front, these books, I mean, I've still got them now. Completely ruined, and I really enjoyed that side of it. And sort of going on with my reptile career, I get just excited like reading about stuff and finding the information about the species I'm interested in, rather than just keeping it. So that sort of installed that sort of side of it as well.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And you had the encouragement as well, which is
yeah. I mean,
fantastic.
she was really into animals anyway, and she wasn't like scared about me having them. She just wanted to make sure, this is going to be your animal. I don't know anything about snakes. You need to know everything about it. It's going to be your pet. So do the research. And like I said, that really installed that reading side. My reading age went up leaps and bounds because every book I could get, I was just reading through a reptile book. I mean, my English teachers and stuff at school must have got bored with me because everything I would read or write about would be a reptile or something. And they must have thought I was right weirdo, especially back in the 90s. It was not commonplace.
So I don't say that as being weird, mate, because that's what all of us did as kids as well. Every school project was about reptiles and all the rest of it. Anything you could slowly sort of gravitate towards where you could somewhat have it towards reptiles, you would. So it made quite easy.
Yeah, it was just a small, as I mean, Australia must have been even worse, but it was just such a small community then, pre-internet. You thought you were like the only one, and you sort of were, and then it's grown exponentially now. I mean, it's so, you speak to people and they've got a bearded dragon or a leopard gecko. I mean, that was pretty much unheard of in the early 90s. It seemed commonplace. And now no one bats an eyelid if you tell them you've got a bearded dragon or a leopard gecko or a corn snake or something like that. So yeah, it's come leaps and bounds, I think.
Yeah,
well, I think they're batting an eyelid if you've got a corn snake or a crested gecko here in Australia, but
well, people just don't say it then, do they? Yeah. So I'm guessing you sort of thought that you would be headed in this direction career-wise when you were younger?
Yeah, so all I thought about and all I wanted to do. I was really lucky. We had a really good reptile shop, actually local to me. It was like one of the only ones that were doing like crazy imports and stuff. And obviously I was in there every weekend, and I got offered a Saturday job, and my life changed then. I was like, this is the absolute dream. I can't believe they're going to let me. It was free. It was completely voluntary. And they give me a bit of food for the reptiles. But to me, every single Saturday and most Sundays, I'd be in there working and just learning as much as I could. And I thought all my dreams had come true at that point. And then I thought, yeah, this is what I want to do. Everyone else was telling me there's no money in it, and which was true to be honest. Stupidly, I mean, I worked in a reptile shop and that wasn't making much money. And then I stupidly managed to get some investment money off my grandmother to buy my own reptile shop. So then I worked in that one from like the age of 17 to about 24, and obviously had to close it with the advent of the internet and just not being able to compete with the prices. I mean, we had a ridiculously big shop. It was like well over 2,000 square foot of just loads of animals. And people were just coming in and, picking the stuff up, like bulbs and stuff, and showing me them. And they'd be like, I can get this for like £2 and we'd be selling it for like £4. I was like, that's literally what I'm buying it for. So that stumped it. And then I thought then that was the career in reptiles over. I then trained to be an electrician. I took some months out to go to Australia. That's my first herp trip to Australia because I couldn't do that with the shop, obviously. And then I come back and trained to be an electrician. I was an electrician for 10 years, which was good money. Had reptiles all through that time. I've never been without a reptile now since the age of 8. Even when I sort of got into partying and women, I always literally had one snake.
That's a different podcast, Chris.
Oh yeah, that one. That's what happens when you sort of wavers when you're in a teenage. When you've been doing it as long as us, you go through that sort of patch. It seems a lot of people do that. A lot of people don't come out the other side. I did, thank God. And then obviously I got this opportunity to work in Indonesia at the farm. So now I've been able to go back to a career fully in reptiles, which is a dream come true. It's in Java. We're in Bogor actually, so we're about an hour and 20 minutes from Jakarta in the mountains, pretty much.
Spot the host that didn't do the research.
Well, everyone just says we're close to Jakarta, and that's where
everyone. But yeah, okay. So Boga. So why Boga? Is that because it's in the mountains and it is a little bit cooler and allows you to keep a greater range of species? Or
so Bunchy literally bought it in Bogor because it's so beautiful here. We're in between two volcanoes, and the land was pretty cheap here. But it does work out quite well. I know a lot of the farms that are close to Jakarta it's really like oppressively hot there, where we can make things hotter here. So we've got like a better environment that we can control a bit more. The outdoor stuff during the wetter months we struggle with a little bit. We do get some problems with some of the stuff just because it rains a lot, because we're at 500 meters elevation here, so it's quite high. Some stuff love, like the Boland's pythons and stuff, really enjoy it. A lot of the monitors do, and then some of the other stuff, some of the snake species, green tree pythons and stuff, can get a few problems just because it's wet and cold. So we tend to do those inside with like your space heaters, your oil filled heaters. But I think it's better being a little bit cooler, because we can raise those temperatures up or move stuff inside, and then it's pretty much perfect from about now until September. It's perfect. We get a nice mix.
So what is perfect, right? What sort of temperatures are we talking?
Talking at night, the lowest it gets here is about 20 degrees Celsius. But often, going into sort of the drier season, it'll be around 25. And then in the day, you're looking maximum temperature about 35 Celsius. Obviously, as you guys know, it'll be a lot hotter in the spots of sun and stuff like that. I can get up to, some of our dwarf monitors, temp gun, they're getting up to 50 Celsius right on the bamboo and stuff. But like ambient temperatures is almost ideal during that time. It starts dropping again, like September, we'll get the rainy season, it drops a bit. I mean, the monitors aren't phased. The most problems we have for some reason, it's some of the python species. Like I said, we do a lot of those indoors now.
So you said that you got bamboo stacks in there. Are they stacks like reed stacks type things in the enclosures for thermoregulation?
Bamboo platforms, most of them. And then we got like the bamboo tubes. But all the cages here, every single outdoor cage has got like an indoor section, as you guys are well aware. It's weird. Some of the monitors will sit out in the rain. And you're like, you bloody idiot. There's a nice warm section then, and a lot of that's built out of like thermalite concrete. So it keeps the heat in there quite well. And then there's plastic topping on there, so that'll absorb the heat even if there's only a bit of sun. They've always got like an area where they can get into it and raise their body temperature up. But like I said, I've got Salvadori, these big 7-foot Salvadori, and they'll just sit out in the sun. Sit out in the rain all day, and you're like, I don't know what you're doing. Yeah, it's like,
and you sort of think it's too cold for you to be out, dude. Like, get your hide.
Like I got a mate of mine from Melbourne. When he was living down there, he had Mertens outside. Right? And he had a large enclosure that they would be in most of the time inside. And then he had a tube that went through the side of the building and then went out into an outdoor mesh everything. And middle of winter, if there was sun outside, this thing would go outside and just sit out in the sun. Didn't matter how cold it was. And in the end, you had to put caps on the inside to make them so they didn't go outside in those colder times, because they just didn't give a shit. They go out there.
I think that's where we're quite lucky. I know some people that keep stuff in the UK, and they like rhino iguanas and stuff. They'll just go out there and they will actually freeze themselves to death. They'll get too cold and then they won't return in. Well, we've got that ambient, even when it's really rainy here, it can still be like 28 Celsius. They seem to be fine. It's more the wet and rain that you think, well, what the hell are you doing? I mean, they're sitting out in the open. They've got plenty of space to go hide away from it. But like I said, we don't any problems with the monitors outside, and it just goes to show that they can take this really wide range of temperatures and pretty rubbish weather. What's
your all-time favourite species to work with?
Oh, I looked at this question. I mean, it changes weekly, Kai. Honestly, it does. I've got some really cool stuff I can't really talk about too much, just because where the islands, they're like dwarf indicus. Some of them are some new species, and I don't really want to tell people until we've captive bred them in enough numbers to sort of put into the trade, because they'll just go and get smashed by the other collectors and stuff over here. But they're really cool. I mean, we're talking like chlorostigma type animals that are like 2 foot and breeding, which are really cool. So I'm really enjoying them. Obviously, the tree monitors is sort of my staple. I get to work with all 6 species of the Indonesian species. They're amazing. Crocodile monitors, probably similar to your Prent. He's a big, intelligent lizard. So yeah, really cool. I mean, I just love all the monitors, really. I could pick one every day. I haven't really got a standout favorite. But I think these dwarf indicus are probably going to be the next thing that people get into. Once we've established them, I think that they're pretty cool.
So let's just narrow it down to tree monitors then, right? What's your favourite tree monitor species?
Risingri.
Bami or Risingri or
Risingri for sure. Yeah, I mean, probably one of the reasons I'm over here now is the success I had with Risingri in the UK. I was probably one of the only people producing them with quite a lot of regularity and to sort of multiple generations. So when you're successful with the species, I think they become your favourite. Risingri and there's so much work to be done with them, with getting them yellow and yellow. We've got some outstanding yellow animals here. If we can start replicating that, they will actually be yellow, because a lot of them are green. I mean, my mum's looking after them at the moment. She's like, those green monitors. I still got a collection at home. So I haven't got any green monitors. It's like, yeah, you have. I was like, oh, they're not really green. She's like, they're fucking green.
So you've got Cordensis and Risingri, Bakari, Prasinus, McRae. What is there? What's the other one I'm missing? Beaumont. So you've got all of them that you can keep. Obviously, the other one that you'd love to keep that you can't keep is Keith Horney. You know
what, Scott? I would just like you guys to be able to keep them, like just to see them in private collections over there. It seems insane to me that you've got Prasinus over there with dubious. We won't get into that. Very, very strange looking Australian Prasinus, but you can't keep Keith Horney. That's insane.
It's one of those things, isn't it?
We see a lot of our wildlife overseas, and even as demonstrators in Queensland, we're allowed a lot more on the demonstrator's permit. It still has to be obviously obtained legally, but we're allowed to keep it. And stuff we can't keep here, like the amount of kookaburras you see overseas, and on a normal wildlife permit, you can't keep a kookaburra here.
That's insane.
Yeah, so in Queensland, the permit doesn't allow you to have soft bills and a whole heap of other stuff that, they've just changed some stuff now. But yeah, kookaburras are still excluded. Magpies are excluded. There's a whole heap of shit that you can't keep. And there is no private keeping of any native mammals in Queensland.
Unless you have a demonstrator. Yeah.
So in Victoria, South Australia, you can keep a whole heap of different mammals, a lot more different sorts of birds as well. But yeah, at the moment, the way things are, it's a little bit archaic in that sense.
Strange. A lot of those are pest species, isn't they? Are you allowed to keep parrots and galahs and stuff like that in Queensland?
Yeah, we can keep a lot of that sort of stuff. You can even keep some exotic birds. You can keep things like macaws and stuff like that. But
any dog, cat, any breed of dog and cat,
But you're not allowed to keep exotic reptiles or anything like that. There's one exotic reptile or amphibian that you're allowed to keep in Australia, and that's an axolotl.
Oh, that's a strange one. How's that happen? Is that to do with the fish trade?
Always in the aquarium industry, I think, and I think they've just sort of allowed it, right? So yeah, that's the only species. They used to allow the keeping of newts. So there was Lysotriton vulgarius, alpestris, and Cyanops pyrogaster from Japan, the Japanese fire-bellied newts. Well, they were all sort of being kept in somewhat reasonable numbers, and then they all got sort of outlawed in the late 90s. And so they all sort of disappeared.
I mean, I don't envy your laws in Australia, full stop. I mean, I'm definitely not going to get into that at all, but it's just crazy. I mean,
to
have the best herping in the world, bar none, and then some of the laws that follow that round is just madness to me.
That's true.
So, I wouldn't think there would be, but what's your least favourite monitor to work with?
Oh, I'm getting trouble because I keep telling them they're like this super misunderstood monitor. There's a tricolor monitor called Varanid. and nobody's really bred them. We've had a few clutches at the farm. We don't breed them with any regularity. They're almost impossible to sex unless they get really, really big. So you have to get them to a good size. It takes quite a while to get there, and they're just massively. I don't want to call them aggressive. They're super defensive. I mean, way worse than any crocodile monitor. You can pretty much go in there and it will not bat an eyelid as long as you don't start messing it. These Uoni will chase you out the cage if they feel that they've got nowhere to go. All the guys here, there's me and one other guy that will go in with Uoni. But they just, I mean, if you get captive bred ones, they'll be sweet. They just haven't been captive bred, so they're all just wild caught adults. And they're just tricky. They just.
So they're from Halmahera, yeah.
From Halmahera, yeah.
Something about Halmahera being fucking weirdly behaving. You know, the Tracy are meant to be pretty funny to deal with as well. The blue tongues over there are a little bit funny to deal with as well. The death adders there are a bit funny to deal with. Everything seems to be a little bit on the nervous side.
They must just be getting abused over there or something. That's what it feels like. These Uoni have got a chip on their shoulder for sure. They're just like they just do not want to be in a vivarium. They do not want messing with. But I think that when we get some more captive bred and some more generations, I bet they'll be sweethearts, and then they'll be really good. They're a stunning monitor. There's nothing else that looks like them, but that's the only one I can think of is like, oh, it's a bit of a, you know, like when every time you go in there, it's like, oh, this is going to be hard work. But it's not their fault. It's nothing to take away from them at all. They're just a stressy defensive monitor.
What sort of size do they get to?
Can get up to sort of 5 foot. We've got a big male here that's about 5 foot, but generally, you know, the 3 to 4 foot range, it seems to be pretty standard for them.
Because I've only ever seen one that was at the Bali Reptile Park. I had one there on display, and the build size and all the rest of it was pretty similar to a Mertens.
Yeah, they're weird. They're like everything smashed into one. They're like very aquatic sometimes. Sometimes they'll spend weeks just in their water bowl. Then other times they'll be super arboreal. Then other times they'll be fossorial. They're like a mix, almost like their color being, you know, three different colors of tricolor. They're like 3 different monitors smashed into one in the way they act. They're nothing like anything else I've ever kept. They're nothing like any other monitor out there. They're just their own weird monitor. I need to get to Halmahera really and have a look, see what they're doing. Apparently they're quite tied to megapode nests. They seem to hang out around megapode nests from the paper I read on them. But I don't know how far in the jungle they are, if they're sort of, you know, connected to some riparian habitats. I don't know. It'd be pretty cool to go there and see what they're up to.
What tree monitors live on Halmahera?
Nothing. No tree monitors.
So no tree monitors on Halmahera.
No, you got a lot of
crocodile monitors there.
No crocodiles. They're all in Papua and New Guinea. So I think there's probably a line that separates a lot of that. I don't know if it's the Wallace line. I don't know where Halmahera splits. There's a lot of
Halmahera is on the east of the Wallace's line. So
right.
It's still classed as Australasian.
Yeah, there's a high.
There's a lot of endemics there.
In loads of endemics. It's like a weird place. Loads of your Prepisaurus, which is like your Indicus type monitors, and they're all pretty much endemic to Halmahera. And then as you go a bit, there's Taliabu, which is sort of to the west of Halmahera. There's
Obi and that.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, Obi there as well.
Yeah. So I mean, there's probably so much more that's there, but there's a good deal of these, you know, Indicus type monitors that live there. But yeah, the tree monitors didn't make it that far west.
Yep. Okay.
What do you reckon is the most underrated species?
I don't know if there is one. Doomerals get a bad rep because they come out so pretty because they come out with their orange heads and they lose it as they get older. I've got some Doomerals monitors here, and I know they're various shades of brown, but there's like grey on them. If you actually get them out and appreciate them, and you didn't compare it to what they look like as babies, they're a really cool monitor, really small, really laid back. So I think they're pretty underrated because they get compared to what they look like as a baby, which is not fair.
I think the other one like that is Rosenberg's.
Komodos?
Right. Like Rosenberg's, Komodos
are stunning.
But baby Komodos are amazing.
Oh, yeah,
but like baby Rosenberg's, fluorescent orange all through them, bands, bars, and all the rest of it, not dissimilar to baby Demarelli. And Komodoensis, those the bright orange and yellow that we saw in some of those as neonates were absolutely
like a week old, I think they were, weren't they?
Yeah, they're insane. Even some of the sub-adult ones are pretty. And they fade up, but they're Komodo dragons, so they're never going to be underrated because they're so cool. But these Doomerals, every time I posted that picture up of the ones we bred here, and everyone's like, "Oh yeah, it's really cool." But it's going to be a brown lizard. It's like, really? It's a fucking really cool brown lizard when it gets older. I mean, you're just comparing it. I know it would be nice for it to say orange, definitely, but you've got the two things, breed them, and you've got the baby ones, and the adults are just as cool for me.
It wouldn't surprise me though if you line bred them and kept the most orange babies and all the rest of it, that 4 or 5 generations down the line, you might end up having animals that retain quite a bit of orange into adulthood anyway.
Yeah, just people just don't bother. It's a bit like Bismarck ring pythons. They're awesome as babies, and then they turn and people, oh, I wish it stayed that color, and nobody's going to put the effort in because it's like, well, it's never going to be as cool as it is as a baby. But just like you said, Scott, just put a bit of work in. I bet you get some that hold that orange for sure, or keep some of the pattern. Just that, and that just annoyed me. I was like, bred these Doomerals. Oh yeah, and every comment was like, yeah, it's really cool, but it's going to turn brown. It's like, come on.
For me, with monitors, it's not the color, it's the personality. When they grow up and they've come into their own, their personalities are so different. Remember the Mertens we used to have?
Yeah.
So we had Mertens, and right beside it was a shingleback enclosure. And the male Merton used to dive bomb me every single time I was feeding the shinglebacks. Only time he dive bombed was when you were feeding the shinglebacks because he wanted food as well. Just little personality traits like that. Yeah.
Even down to the smallest, like Aldatria and stuff, they're just so intelligent and so cool. But that's why I said I don't think there is an underrated monitor that I can think of. There's just ones that people go, oh, that's not as cool because of the color it is. There's so much of that in the hobby anyway, of the color and pattern being the most important thing. I'm guilty of it to some extent. I want to line breed some stuff so it's better color and stuff. But to be to not keep it just because it doesn't keep it as orange as it is when it's a baby is just like, that's not right.
Yeah.
How what do you think the biggest differences are in keeping in the UK versus keeping in Indonesia now?
Just the outdoor stuff. The Dunning-Kruger effect I've had of being here a year, of thinking, oh, this outdoor stuff's not that bad, and then fuck, it's really fucking difficult, and I have no idea, and it's going to take me 10 years at least to even probably guess what's going on. But yeah, we keep a lot of stuff indoors, so like all the babies and stuff are pretty much indoors until they get to a certain size. When it comes to the tree monitors, that's exactly the same as I was doing in the UK. The pythons and stuff, it's learning a bit more to deal with the ambient. In the UK, you'd give them like heat lamps and stuff, and you wouldn't keep them, or I didn't keep them, is ambient here. Everything here, where we can, is kept ambient, apart from the coolest sort of periods when we put those space heaters in.
Yeah. So what for the people that are listening only on the podcast now, where you might want to go back and have a look at the YouTube version of this. We've got a whole heap of photos that Chris has so kindly sent across to us. So we're going to throw up a whole heap of photos from the stuff in regards to Crustacea Farm and how you're keeping your stuff over there, and then running around the scrub looking at monitors in the wild, and then a few other bits and pieces that go along with that. And we've got some questions that we'll be asking you as we go through. So I suppose, what's the first thing off?
You're an over-explainer, Jesus.
What are we looking at here, mate? What have you got up on the screen? What's this?
So that's just a baby Beccarii or black tree monitor coming out of the egg. I bothered to get my actual camera out for that one to take sort of a macro shot. I think you can see the egg tooth if you really zoomed in on it.
Yeah.
So that there is so. When I first got here, I sort of worked out that the tree monitors are going to be quite seasonal, just because, as you guys know, with the outdoor stuff, these tree monitors, maybe I've had a couple of them now breed twice a year outdoors, but indoors I can probably get them to breed 3 to 4 times a year. So I was like, this is going to be super seasonal if we do just everything outside. So I spoke to Bungie, the owner. I was like, why don't we set up one of the rooms? It's pretty much identical what we do in Europe, and these cages are pretty much identical what I was doing in the UK. And then we'll be able to have tree monitors and some of the other monitors breeding year round. So we won't have just this glut of monitors. We'll have monitors. They take 6 months to hatch. When you breed them outdoors, they'll just be breeding probably in May, June. You got to wait till Christmas for them to hatch, and then you got to wait another 2 months for them to be able to be sold. So if you can breed them indoors, you can get them going all year round. So then we can just offer to our customers monitors, the tree monitors year round. That's what we did. I told him to build 25 of these cages, and in typical Bungie fashion, he ended up building 75. And it was a real eye opener to see how quickly they can get stuff built here, and the materials they use. I was like, oh, we're gonna have to build them all out of plywood because that's what I do at home. And he's like, no, we'll build them out of brick and they'll last for 50 years. I was like, oh, okay, I couldn't even work out how he was going to do it. And we've got a welder on site and a brickie on site at all times making enclosures, and they just smashed them up. And I was like, fuck, that's way better than anything I'd ever even dream of. But the
bricks are like, you throw a mortar on the side of it, right? And then you've got like a rock wall background sort of thing. The animals can keep their claws down because they're always wearing them down on natural type surfaces and all the rest of it. So in this picture, you got two cages. Are they two individual cages, or are they cages that is one cage that goes all the way through?
Yeah, that's just one cage. We've got some O-ball monitors in there, which are rarely bred. I wanted to just try them indoors just to see if I can get them going a bit more indoors. But yeah, that's just a stack of it would have been 2 cages, but I just made it into one big one basically.
Yeah. And so we've got green pythons on a stick.
Yeah, pretty much. They're a sore subject, green tree pythons for me. They're a pain. So yeah, we keep them indoors and outdoors. Like I said before, we get some problems with them outdoors, and then we move them indoors, and we get problems with them indoors, and we actually find out they do better outdoors. They're really tricky. When they're good, they're really good. Yeah, they're like the easiest snake you can possibly keep, but they're so susceptible to mouth rot and pushing and other stuff that they just become a pain in my ass. I mean, if I didn't have to do them, I wouldn't do them. But everyone wants them. So I just got to battle on with them. But out of everything on the farm, they cause me the most problem. And like I said,
are you keeping them as locality specific, or are you guys doing colours where you can?
No. I'm super against any hybridizing of anything. I've done it in the past with carpet pythons, and ended up with muddy messes of rubbish, pretty much. But no, it's really a real shame. Like the amount of places now you can't get these localities of green tree pythons because they've just crossed everything. I just got a load of founder stock of coffee owls, which are those ones that stay yellow for a lot longer as babies. They call them canary chondros. I mean, loads of them got exported to the States and stuff. And the first fucking thing they did was breed it to a Biak green tree python, which we now know is a completely different species. And I was like, did nobody keep these pure? So I'm super hot on just keeping everything locality specific. And yeah, we won't be crossing anything here.
Of this area, you're keeping the 3 subspecies, or have you got 2 subspecies, or Alpha X's and Walker, or you got all 3?
Well, we got everything, all the species of green tree python. So we got your Pulcher, your Azoriazora, which is your BX, your Utarensis, and then your Viridis, which would be our like Meraukis and Arus. But yeah, they're a pain. I mean, they're just a pain. I think nobody keeps them in the numbers. I mean, you could probably keep one. We can keep 20 of them absolutely fine. We keeping like 150 of them. So unfortunately, there's always a problem with them somewhere along the line. And like I said, it's a case of moving them indoors and outdoors. They get a bit of mouth rot indoors, and you move them outdoors, and it clears up. They get a bit of mouth rot outdoors, and you seem to move them indoors, and there's no rhyme or reason with them. But hopefully we'll get them cracked. And like I said, I've got a load of them breeding now. So yeah, it'd be nice to offer some real locality, pure animals, because a lot of the guys over here started crossing them. Even some of the other reptile farms, they started crossing them here before they even bloody got to America and some of the other places. So.
I'm with you on that, because if you look at history, everything comes full circle. By the time it comes full circle that people are going to be wanting back pure animals, There aren't going to be any.
Yes, none left, and they could stop at any point. That's the real big thing with Indonesia. It's always on the cusp of just exports being stopped from various countries. America, they've just put that ban in on the blue tree monitors. There's no reason they couldn't turn around and say, right, we don't want any more green tree pythons, and then that's closed off again. And it's just infuriating that I know you want these really cool non-looking green tree pythons. I mean, some of the localities of green tree pythons piss all over these designer, or if you want to call it, I mean, I hate that word as well. These designer green tree pythons that they're charging 10K for, whatever, just because it's a black green tree python makes no sense to me. Selectively breed the localities, and you'll get a far better looking animal, in my opinion. I mean, each to their own.
Yeah.
So the substrate that you got in there, it looks like that is that coconut husk. So...
Yeah, believe it or not, in Indonesia, it's cheaper for a bag of cocoa husk than it is for newspaper. So it costs more. It costs more for us to use a stack of newspaper, which I probably use and we were using. It's just costing us too much money to keep it clean and good. So we just use that cocoa chip now.
Yeah.
Can I ask a dumb girl question?
Of course.
Are they crates at the front?
Plastic crates, yeah.
So
these ones,
why
yeah.
crates? Is there a reason for that, or you just had them there, or?
So Bunji, when he designed the farm 30 years ago, he was probably one of the first people. He stands by. He's the first person to design this, and then all the other farms actually copied it. Apparently, is what he says. But yeah, they were just super cheap at the time. The footprint of them is actually massive when you look into them.
So are they the 1200 by 1200 pallets?
Yeah, they're huge. Yeah, they're absolutely massive. And then, like I said, he's just cut a hole in the front of them. They stack really easy. They're all sort of bolted together. I mean, and they're plastic as well, so they're super easy to clean. You get any mites or anything in there, you can just wipe them out. So yeah, really, really cool and a really good idea. I would never come up with it.
So how are they ventilated?
They just got holes in them, Scott. So in the back, they just got holes drilled into them. And I think he did play around with some of the, the push-in vents. So yeah, and there's like a void in between the two sides of it. There's some airflow there, and then there's sort of vents on either end of that.
So the one thing that we noticed that when we went into our building, that ventilation is so important when it comes to working with reptiles and amphibians. It's something that's often underreported as being how important it is. How do you combat things like room circulation? Are you running fans in these inside rooms to try and get that airflow via Venturi effect past the enclosures, or
on that room there's just a door on the front that's sort of open. It's like a mesh door basically, so it's not completely shut. And most of the stuff in there seems to be good. The one thing, Ryan was over recently and he said, why don't you have any ceiling fans in those green tree python rooms? And they did before I got here, they did, and they've ripped them out. So we're going to put some ceiling fans back in, and that might actually help a lot with some of the issues we're having with them. Because like I said, even in the UK, I use aquarium fans just for air circulation. It's not really like proper ventilation, but it just moves the air around. And I found them to be a lot better with the tree monitors. You don't get the stagnant air. It's not like true ventilation, like extraction. I got a bit of jip over it. I think Brian Young was actually one of the persons that said, "Oh, that's not real ventilation," but it is air movement, and that stops it sort of stagnating.
The thing is, right, is if you've got it so it's pushing in on one side, right, air pressure will always want to equalise anyway. So you've got a Venturi effect. If you've got air going that's moving past past a vent or a hole, you'll get a Venturi effect where it'll actually suck the air out of that enclosure and then push it across. So that Venturi effect's really important, and it does actually make a big difference, I think, to the animal's health, having that bit of air movement. Now, that's not to say that, you want them blowing in a gale the whole time, particularly species that are sitting in areas that doesn't tend to get a hell of a lot of wind, like rainforests and stuff like that. Is probably quite important. But then for your coastal species or your mangrove species that is always subject to wind and rain, and that movement, I think it probably makes a big difference.
Yeah, the one thing I did find with it is it turns your cage into an incubator. If you just leave the fans on all day, the whole ambient of the whole cage just becomes the same ambient. So you don't get that thermoregulation you get. So what I was doing, I just put them on a timer. So they come on for a couple of hours. and then turn off for like 3-4 hours, and they'd just come on for another couple of hours. I did at first try running them all the time, thinking, oh, this is sweet. And then I went and checked the temperatures in there, and it's like, oh, I've just basically made an incubator, haven't I? Because that's literally what an incubator is. Well, it's a heat element with a fan in it.
Which is why we went with the room ventilation, right? The room circulation. So what you end up getting is you still end up getting your warm spots in the enclosure, so you don't get that incubator style effect. Yeah. But then you also get that air movement going past. So, you know. Anyway.
Yeah, it's massively underrated. I mean, especially with the tree monitors, because you're keeping them so humid and stuff. It's so easy for that air to get so stagnant. And as soon as I put those fans in there, you put your head in there and you're like, oh, this actually feels like it does in nature almost, where it's got that bit of wind. The air feels, a lot less stagnant. Yeah. Where if you don't have them in there, you put your head in there, it's like, yeah, this is super humid, but it doesn't feel like a comfortable environment for anything to be in.
Feel right.
You got that humidity, but it's like this is probably, pretty detrimental.
So you look like you're doing your own insects. So this looks like an insect room.
That's it. Yeah, that's all just crickets in there. I mean, we've got it's probably closer to 600 monitor species here. Not monitor species, monitors in total, not species. We've got about 30 species, but 600 monitors. So yeah, that's a lot of food that they need. So we breed all our own food just for the farm. We don't export it out or anything. So we do crickets, dubia roaches, lobster roaches. And we were doing quail. We buy the quail now because they were just costing too much to feed. We can get quail pretty cheap. But yeah, if we didn't have this, everything would just ground to a halt.
Are you doing rodents as well?
Oh, and rodents, yeah. Yeah, we do mice and rats. So that's just more of those, European style cages or sort of my design cages I was using in the UK. And like I said, I wanted 25. He built 75, but now I'm glad he built 75 because they worked. The interesting thing was, you have these ideas of what works in one country, what area. I didn't want him to build 100 or 70 of them and them not work. So I was like, fucking hell, I really hope these work when I seen them going out.
Better make it work.
Yeah, they got to work.
So I can see there's a numbering system on there as well. So that's obviously your record keeping.
Yeah. So each cage is just numbered, and then we've got the feeding schedules. I tend to just track the mice and rodents that we feed some of the tree monitors on there because it's just easier. And then they're sort of getting cycle fed to get them to breed. And then if stuff's not eating, because we've got such a large collection, you can't keep an eye on every single one. But if you can see, no, that hasn't eaten now for 2-3 weeks, there's probably something up. And then, you take a closer look at it. So that numbering and that, it's a really simple system, just writing down what they're eating.
Often the simple ones are the best ones, I think.
Oh yeah. I'd overcomplicate it to hell. And Bungie's like he's got this engineering mindset. He's like, right, we're doing a sticker. Those are clocking in and out cards that we use on there. So it's just got the time in there. I'm like, oh, we need to make our own special feeding records. He's like, no, clocking in and out card. It's just a bit of paper with some lines on it. Yeah, sweet. So it's easy to overcomplicate it.
I know people are starting to use things like QR codes and stuff like that, where you can. And it's all good in theory, right? But
a massive collection.
Sometimes it's just easier with that hand-like approach where you can just, a marker on a card as you go through. Not the end of the world.
Yeah. And we cycle quite a lot of stuff inside and outside as well for like some of the tree monitors. So we might put a male in there and feed him up for a bit and use him for a while for some of them, and then we'll be cycling out and using a better male that we've raised up. So there's that constant change, and with that system you can just blank out the old tree monitor that was on there just with a marker pen and start anew. I mean, with a QR code you probably have to bloody go through all sorts of rigmarole just because you've changed the animals around.
Yeah, 100%. So you've got so this is an overview of the outside of the enclosures, some of the outside enclosures.
All those are just tree monitor enclosures. So these ones in the foreground, that's all male enclosures. So we keep everything separate. We have tried to keep stuff in pairs, but I do find with a large collection, it's really hard to keep the males from not just smashing all the food, and then just the female, you end up with a skinny female, and sort of the numbers we're doing on that happens quite quickly. So it's just easier to keep. Sorry, Scott. Go on.
No, so do you have? I can see you got looks like concrete walls in between the mesh fronts. Are they visual barriers to stop them wanting to fight each other through the things? bit like how people have visual barriers for chameleons when they climb chameleons, or is this something that it just happened to have been? It wasn't a deliberate thing.
Just the way it is. I mean, those ones can actually see each other. There's another row there, so that whole section is males. I haven't found any problems with it, and I was hoping it might just G them up a little bit if they can see each other, and then when you put them, you actually give them the chance to put it in with a female. They're sort of G'd up because they've been next to a load of males and they're sort of happy to breed. But yeah, they don't stop eating. I haven't seen any stress with them having any problems with them being next to each other. But with the chameleon, we actually keep panther chameleons here. They're a lot more. They will just stress each other out. The males, just flaring up. So yeah, I get what you're saying with that.
So these are obviously for a mega-sized tree monitor, I suppose, if you will.
Yeah, I mean that's actually a bird aviary. So the Prasassi before it was full-on reptiles was actually birds. So it was doing a lot of bird exporting, and that's sort of where Bungie started. But then bird flu come in, obviously, and they stopped all exports. So that was just a big bird aviary. I think Peter Folsham had some hornbills in there, which ended up getting sold. So he was a bit salty about that. And as soon as I seen it, and I was like, we're a reptile farm. We're going to have crocodile monitors in there. So it's just all set up for crocodile monitors. Sort of paradise.
What's the height on it?
I wouldn't even know, Scott. Tall. I've never measured it.
So do you? So that gate on the front there, do you need to duck to get into it, or is that
that one on the left? Yeah, there's one on the left there.
So this little gate here that you can see.
You duck to get into that. But yeah, I've never measured it. I probably should do. It's big. I mean, it's really big. It's a big old cage. It used to have birds flying around in it, so it's sort of he copied that design. There's a bird park in Jakarta or on the outskirts of Jakarta that made them exactly like that, and he just copied the design of it.
Yeah,
but now, so good. I mean,
it was about 12 meters long by probably 4 meters high by about 6 meters deep or something, is it?
Honestly, I wouldn't know. I'll measure it and let you know. It's big. It's huge. It's massive. It's like being when you step in there. It's like being in the jungle, and it's like every time there's just a single Jayapura locality crocodile monitor in there. Everything I put in there, I put another female Jayapura in there, and unfortunately she passed away. And I put a male in there, and he passed away. So and she's been in there for months, a year now, and she has no problems. So I don't know if she's bullying anything that goes in there or something weird's going on. So I'm waiting to get a male Jayapura Salvadori to chuck in with her so she can breed. But yeah, she did have a Partho clutch. If you look on the very left there, there's like a nesting section. If you go further left.
That's
like a complete indoor set. That's full of cocoa peat. And she did actually have a Partho clutch that didn't amount to anything. That she laid in there. And then up on the top there, she's got like a on the left.
It looks like there's a bridge up there, a platform for her to get up there.
Yeah. I mean, she loves it, and like I was saying before, it's like herping. She's a big old monitor. She's a good 6.5 foot probably, and every time you go in there, you really have to spot her. It's not easy. But yeah, it'd be nice to just get something in there that she doesn't kill or she can actually breed with. Would be good. But sort of a Prasassi mascot or pet at the moment.
Fantastic. So I suppose the one thing that we definitely wanted to talk about in this was, I mean, you breed a lot of your tree monitors. Obviously, the tree monitors here in Australia are fairly highly sought after and fairly new. Could you give us a bit of a rundown on general husbandry and how you keep them and how you're successful with them?
Indoors or outdoors? Because that's the big question now.
Well, I would suggest that most people in Australia are keeping them indoors. So we'll go with indoors.
I mean, super easy. I mean, they need UV for sure. I'd recommend like a 14% Arcadia. I don't know if you can get them in Australia, but the Arcadia, the higher percentage, there's a caveat to that, is you need a UVB meter because that 14%, and you need somewhere they can get away from it, especially when it's a new tube. But those 14% ones will last a lot longer. And I mean, they're trying to get you to change them every 6 months. So if you test those 14% ones, I've had them last 2-3 years. So the cost effectiveness of putting a 14% with the caveat of using a UVB meter, just keep checking it and making sure you've got some shaded areas and somewhere they can go completely out of it. I've taken some UV readings in Batanta and stuff, and it gets up there. You're looking at 13, 14 on that Ferguson index. Average probably you want to keep stuff is sort of 3.5 to 4. Like I said, they'll go, that's sort of under the canopy, but a lot of them are basking on the top sort of canopies where it is getting up to 30%. So I wouldn't worry. I know it's designed for like a desert. They say it's marketed as a desert thing, but for cost effectiveness and making sure you get some UV that you're not changing every 6 months or whatever, that's what I recommend for that. And then I use halogen bulbs. I find the best. Put them to one side. So you got that thermoregulation left to right and up and down. They don't need to be too high. I think I was using 80 watt ones in the UK. And that, we can't get them here, unfortunately. We have to use the tungsten filament lights, which are still good. They still work. We just use 60 to 80 watt ones of those. You want to cover sorry, go.
So would you be using like 2 or 3 of those to make sure that you're covering the whole body of the lizard so you don't get a hot spot on the lizard? Or
I know that. I never have. The spread on those halogens is really good as long as you position, your basking spot far enough away. It seems to be doesn't seem. I've never had any burns with any of my tree monitors, and even the ones we got into tungsten here, which I was a bit more worried about because they've got a narrower beam. They haven't got any burns or anything like that. It's important to keep that ambient, quite hot. I keep them a lot hotter here than I did in the UK. The ambience here can get up to sort of, in the summer, 35 C ambient. Probably dropping down to like maybe 28, which I don't know. In the wild, that's exactly what it's like. But I always thought in the UK it seemed a bit hot, and now it doesn't seem to be much of a problem. I probably want, if in an ideal world, sort of 25 C as your sort of cooler end at your bottom of your vivarium, and then sort of an ambient around 28 C. But they can definitely take the higher ambience. And then we don't use any heating. I didn't use any heating at night at all, so they can drop down pretty cold. Again, 22 C is not unheard of, and I actually like keeping them around sort of 22 C at night. 25 is fine as well. Keep a lot of them where we struggle because it is so hot in the summer months here. It will be 25 degrees C, and there's nothing I can do to get it any cooler. Again, going back to like the UK, because it's so cold, you can always put more heat in and take it away, so it's a lot easier to control. Australia is probably difficult again because you've got pretty high ambience if you're up where you are. You're probably getting 25 at night. So it's amazing how much hotter they can keep that ambient temperature. Like I said, I was worried about it before. We've had no problems, and they breed really well, even if the ambient in the day is getting up to sort of 35 C.
So being close to the equator, your deal cycle is going to be pretty much 12 year round. So I'm assuming that's what you're keeping them. You're not really varying.
6 till 6. Yeah, 6 till 6. The only thing I will vary is that basking spot. And that's more to combat because it could get up to 40 Celsius with that. If you're going into the afternoon after 12 o'clock here and it's hot outside, you're going to boost that. And when it gets to 40 Celsius, I'd be worried. I really don't want anything over 35 Celsius ambient. I think that's, the sweet spot. And that's what it is when I've been to Batanta and stuff like that. The heat of the day in that jungle, it can get to sort of 30 to 35 Celsius, and then it sort of tapers off. So that's the only one I'll change the sort of so-called, it's not really a photo period. It's just the heating, that basking spot. I'll maybe shut that off at, it'll come on at 6 and then probably shut off at like 12 o'clock. Or then when it gets cooler, I might extend that to like 3 o'clock. And then once the ambience reach that 35 degrees, you're pretty sweet anyway. I mean, they do all their activity and basking and stuff in that morning. They'll run around and hunt. As soon as the ambient gets too hot, they'll go and chill and sort of set themselves away, which is exactly what we see in the wild. And same with the Australian monitors. There's a peak hour in that morning hour. As soon as that ambient reaches too much, you're not really finding anything. Possibly they come back again in the afternoon. The tree monitors I've never really found after 3 o'clock is probably the latest one, and that's probably a day that it's rained, where it's been warm in the morning, it's rained, and then warm in the afternoon. You might get the odd one that comes back out.
Yeah. So what sort of diet are you looking at? I mean, I know over here that people are concerned about feeding too many rodents to their lizard or breeding.
Yeah,
they do like their insects more than the rodents.
I mean, they like their rodents more than anything, but that's the issue. It's like too much of a good thing. From all the studies that have been done and all the gut analysis, it seems to be pretty much katydids, locust, and in heavily insect diet. I found Risingri, which might bring up some pictures later, on that coconut tree. That was actually hunting Carlia or Moya skinks. You actually found it chasing after one of them. So they will take small reptiles for sure. At least Risingri, I've seen them do that. It needs to be like 80 to 90% insect diet, unless you're trying to breed them, where they just need those extra calcium, extra calories to sort of turn into, to cause vitellogenesis, to get that those follicles yolked up, basically. But there's a caveat to all this stuff. If you just smash them with rodents all the time, they don't turn it into eggs. Now they'll get fat bodies, and then they'll actually stop producing follicles. I've done it myself, trying to get stuff to breed in the UK by smashing it with small mice or quail and stuff like that. And if you go over it, it's almost impossible to get them back. It takes years to get them back to, producing follicles again, from what I've seen. So they need to be used really sparingly, and they're not all year round. So because we're breeding the outdoor stuff now, none of the indoor stuff's getting any rodents or any quail or anything like that. So they're on their sort of down cycle, where we're using a lot of the rodents and stuff to feed up the stuff outside that hasn't had any insects now for, hasn't had any protein now for 6 months. So it's like a curve. They will eat a rodent every day if you offer it to them, but you'll just end up with the fat lizard for sure.
And reproduction wise, do you want to throw anything out there? A lot of people here, it's a new and exciting lizard, and it's not, there's really not much on them.
Yeah, like how do you pair them? Cooling? Do you cool them?
What age do you find suitable? Size?
The youngest I've had them breed is 2.5 years, and that was probably too young. She didn't really produce much after that. 3 years plus is a good age for the females. The males will breed a year if you allow them to. I mean, they can become a bit annoying when you're keeping some holdbacks together and you raise them as groups. You'll get the males actually start to try and breed with the females, and they're nowhere. Around a year old, the males will start trying to breed the females, and the females aren't even producing follicles or anything like that. So 3 years plus for your adults. I keep everything separately. It makes sense to me that these monitors aren't paired up, contrary to a lot of abuse I got online recently from a well-known reptile guy in America, a monitor guy that believes everything is kept in groups. All the monitors he's ever found in Australia, there was 20 of them under one rock. And all that stuff. Yeah,
that would be the same person that always has the same guy that found 30 Sparnus or something like that.
Yeah. You know the one. I don't know why.
He's found more Sparnus in one afternoon than everyone has ever found before.
Yeah, it's 20 King Aurum under one rock. I heard him say before. I mean, I had a lot of respect for him and what he did in the early days, but he just spouts so much rubbish now. And recycling old pictures, and I don't know what it is. He's got this mindset that everything is in groups, because he's looking at Gila monsters or Gila monsters in the wild and stuff like that, and putting onto monitors. But anyway, I keep everything separate because I think that's probably what happens in the wild. And like I said, alluded to before, you will get just a big fat male that bullies the female eventually. I have kept stuff in trios, and you tend to get a male and a female that are fairly okay for a bit, and then you'll get a female, the extra female, that's just never does any good, never reproduces, and is pretty stressed. So I mean, you can definitely keep them in pairs as long as you keep an eye on that male. If I think the thing is, I've got so many here, and if I did it, it would be too much work. So it's easier for me to keep all the females separate and all the males separate, and just bring them together when the females are, I think the females are cycling. I've got a couple of black trees at home that I've kept, but you've got to keep a real eye on that male. You've got to make sure that female's getting as much food as that male is. You can't be lazy. You can't just chuck that food in there and expect them to divvy it up equally. So for sure, you can keep
force feeding and stuff like that to ensure that you're getting.
You got
the females getting enough food.
Yeah, you got a tongue feed, usually the male. I mean, the females are bloody stupid. You'll give a female like a quail or even a locust, and she will literally go up to the male and almost show him, "Oh, look what I've got."
Look what I've got.
I feel like I should have said something there on behalf of the females.
Look what I got, and usually what happens is they bite each other.
And the male just takes it.
Yeah. And the female will then run off super stressed and think, oh, I don't want to eat anymore, and the male end up eating everything. That's not to say you cannot do it, and I don't want to say that. And I've done it in pairs. Trios, I've never had any success with at all. Like I said, you get the two together, and you'll get the female that's just ends up rough looking.
And I think that's the thing where people are going to remember too, right? Is that just because somebody has done it once somewhere, or someone has a really compatible trio that does really well together, and they are able to keep them in a trio, that doesn't mean to say that that's going to work for 99% of people out there. And the other
just
thing,
because they're opposite sex doesn't mean they're going to get along and breed.
Yeah, 100%. And that's half the reason that people have trouble breeding at times, is that they might have two of the opposite sex, and they might be introducing them at the right times and all the rest of it, but that pair just doesn't happen to be compatible for whatever reason. And
especially with monitors, it seems to be a big thing. I've literally just taken some Salvadori out, which I wanted. It's always the ones you want to breed that don't end up breeding. Put a rough-looking male in there, and he's straight onto her. I mean, we're talking like a day in between. I put the male in, he showed no interest. I was like, that's weird. She's definitely cycling. I use an ultrasound machine here, so I could see the follicles in there. It's like she's bang on when she should be, giving out pheromones and stuff. Took that male out, put the new male in the next day, which is not the one I wanted to breed, but straight onto her, locked up, and they've been locked up for 2 days now. It's just like, they're very bird-like in a way, these monitors. They're, just literally what you were saying, Scott. Just because you got a male and a female doesn't mean they'll get on with each other.
A Salvadori, similar to various, where they're very gentle when it comes to the actual mating.
Massively,
The courtship is like they've got these incredibly long teeth and sharp teeth and all the rest of it, but it is probably the most. They don't seem to mate; they seem to make love.
They're crass.
Like they are so gentle, particularly when you see a really large male Lacey over the top of a 3 foot long female, and it's like, I'm going to be gentle. I'm not going to crush you.
But then you see what a blue tongue does to a female, and you think, shit.
And then you see other things that just get raped.
The big one, I've never kept various. I'm sure they're similar, maybe not. The big thing with the Salvadori and why that, I mean, you asked the question about what the most important tool I've got now is. I've never used it before. The ultrasound here now for these big monitors is number one. I couldn't do it. So if you put a male Salvadori in with the female, it's never the male that, and she's not receptive, it's never the male that causes the problem. The male will go up there and have a go, but the female will spin round and have a real dig at the male, and then the male will just be like, oh, what's going on? And a switch is turned, and then he will always end up killing the female. And when they bite each other, you can imagine the teeth is lacerating, they end up dying. But if you catch them right, and use the ultrasound, they're pretty. When you've seen enough of them, they're pretty easy. They balloon up quite a bit, and you chuck the male in there, and she's super receptive. They're so gentle, and they're pretty much inseparable for a good week then. But if you get that wrong and put that male in there at the wrong time, it's just a bloodbath.
Fair enough. So just getting back to the Prasunus complex. Once you get eggs, are you looking at getting one clutch or two clutches or three clutches? What are we talking in a season is fairly typical?
Sorry.
No, letting the dog have his letting him have his word. You can expect if you get a good pair or a good female and you can get enough weight onto her, you can breed them indoors 4 times a year, like easily. I've done it several times with several different species. If they don't go back onto the feed straight after, you won't. But typically indoors, you'd be looking at 2-3 clutches a year. 2 clutches is probably about right, where you're not really smashing that female. If you're getting 2 clutches, they can deal with it. They're getting enough body weight and stuff, and that feels fairly natural. Outdoors, because you're sort of combating with the seasonalities and the rain and all that sort of stuff, is one. I've had 3 Cordensis, which Cordensis have a lot, because they're a small lizard, they seem to have a lot smaller clutches. I mean, that picture we got up there with 4 is the biggest clutch I had. Usually they're laying, sort of 2 eggs, and it doesn't seem to take out as much as them. So they're the only ones I've had outside now that will have 2 clutches a year. It just seems to be a lot harder to get the weight back on the ones outdoors, because they haven't got that optimum, the optimum lighting and optimum heat every single day. They're battling with 2-3 days where it might rain, where they're off their food, and they got a week where they're on their food again. And I'm pretty. Go on, Scott.
Are you concerned about like osteoporosis with the continual reproduction in the females, double clutching, triple clutching, where it's drawing the calcium out of the bones of the females?
Yeah, I mean, you just got to be on top of it. I mean, I had the weird thing with monitors is you can try and stop them breeding, and they won't. They'll just produce infertile clutches. And at that point, you're like, well, it might as well be a fertile clutch if you're going to do that. If you've got one of those females, I've got some Bakari at home, and she will go from eggs to breeding again in 1 month. And I've tried slowing her down and doing that, and she'll just have infertile eggs, and that is pretty rare. Usually, you're getting sort of 60 days from eggs to sort of breeding again, and they seem to be able to deal with it. The thing I don't know, and I don't think anyone knows, is for how long can they sustain that. I'm sure they can't sustain that for a long time. You probably I've got some Risingrai at home. She's starting to look a bit rough now. She's old, but she bred pretty much every 3 months for about 3 years. But yeah, I don't think you need to be doing that. It's a tricky one. If you get a good female, she'll breed no matter what. I mean, you can slow that food down and she'll just produce infertiles. And if that's happening, I think you should probably just support them with as much calcium as you can, get enough food into them, and just keep pairing them. They seem to taper off sort of naturally. But in the wild, then there's no way they're breeding 3-4 times a year. It's just a result of captivity.
Is that potentially something? Sorry, go on.
I can get a word in. We'll flick you that paper. Remember, we found it when it was about breeding, double clutching. The more that the female breeds, admittedly, it's snakes, but it would stand to reason it would go across the board. Yeah.
So the other thing that I suppose you could look at potentially is that if they if they're not as successful reproductive wise outside, you might be able to have them inside for a year or 2 years and then take them outside and give them that forced slowdown over that outdoor period to maybe give them that chance to recuperate a little bit.
That's it. Yeah, like I said to you earlier, a bit like those cards and stuff. We cycle a lot of stuff indoors and outdoors. They do really well indoors, and then you can sort of move them and they'll be actually better outdoors. It's just down to conditions. I mean, you'd be surprised how skinny. Well, I'm surprised because I haven't kept anything outdoors really, but you'll be surprised how little weight some of these females need to actually go into cycle compared to what you see indoors, where you seem to think they need to be have loads of food and stuff. The triggers outdoors, I think, is maybe a lot more seasonal than food, where indoors, because you're not really changing that environment as dramatically as you are outdoors, it seems to be food cycling seems to be the big trigger for the indoor stuff.
What's your favourite medium for the eggs? What do you find has worked better than
perlite all day long? Yeah, I've always used perlite. Yeah, perlite. I've tried suspended for python eggs. That's suspended over water. I can't beat it. I've tried in perlite and stuff, and I think that's fantastic. But for the tree monitors and all monitors, just direct in perlite. Interestingly, that's been a big change actually coming from the UK. So the UK is pretty much standard to use a 1-to-1 ratio of perlite to water. Tried using that over here for the first few months I was here. All the eggs swelled up too big, all went moldy. I actually have to use half the amount of water to perlite just because we're in Indonesia now, and that ambient humidity in that incubator is so high. Yeah.
And have you noticed the colours are better in the lizards outside with the natural UV than what they are inside?
Yeah, to a point. I mean, I think everything just looks better outdoors anyway. I always take the stuff I've got indoors. I take it outdoors to take photos of it, and it just looks better. It's just a better class of light. The interesting thing is some of these like the green tree monitors. You get the same issues, not issues is the wrong word. So a lot of them hatch out turquoise sort of color. It's like, again, a thing we see in captivity, but we also get that occasionally with the stuff outdoors. So it's not like it's just the UV that's affecting. There's got to be more at play than that. You'd think all the ones outdoors would be, they'd come out exactly as they would in the wild, where that doesn't happen. So that's been quite interesting.
It certainly seems that the colour outside is better in a lot of things, but then the scales and the skin feels different in the animals that are outside. It feels stronger, thicker, harder, if you will, and the animals feel like they've got better muscle tone when they're outside too, I think.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, especially for the snakes. I think you said it before, Scott, but the snakes, you can really feel it compared to when they're kept inside. The monitors are pretty rough anyway, their skin. I mean, I love keeping stuff outdoors apart from I can't control it. I go and look at those monitors. My window here looks out on a load of tree monitors, and every morning I'll get to wake up, open the curtains, and see tree monitors basking in natural sunlight. I mean, that is, there's nothing better. It's
Everyone here hates you now.
It's not the same as seeing your lizard go and bask under a light bulb. But it's just so much. You're just so out of control outside. That's how I feel. I'm like proper chucking stuff at the wall and seeing what sticks outdoors, where indoors I can control every single thing. And I think, which probably isn't the case, I'm doing, I'm breeding them, I'm doing all the work inside, and they're doing it because of what I'm doing. Well, outdoors, it's like, I think they're just going to do what they want.
You need to get him to build a cage on the side of the house that you're staying in, so you can literally look out your window into an enclosure that's got the lizards in.
Yeah, I need some break from them, Scott. I mean, I look after.
Hey, mate, you just spent some time in hospital. That was your breaking up, wasn't
it? Wow! Everyone can see how hard I've got it here.
Oh yeah. I mean, you go away, as you guys possibly know, you go away for a week, and everything's changed when you get back.
Yeah.
I mean, you can give everyone all the rules and what you want doing, and this needs doing this day, and make it as strict as possible, and you think it's foolproof, and you get back and you're like, oh, they've really not understood that. And I've got the language barrier here in Indonesia as well, so I'm battling that all the time. I'm like, do they really know what I'm talking about? And oftentimes they make it up. Sometimes it works, sometimes they do stuff and I'm like, oh, why have they done that? And it works out better than what I would do it. So it works. But when you're a bit of a control freak like I am, and been used to keeping everything indoors, it's like, the outdoor stuff is difficult.
Is there anything you miss from the UK?
Oh, the food, mate. Obviously, I shouldn't have said that. I should have gone, oh, my mum, my family, all my friends.
Oh, yeah, you totally should have said your mum.
But Indonesian food is great, but we've got no matter what people say, we've got some of the best food in the world in the UK. I don't know what people think about when they're saying it's bland. We spent half our empire going and looking for spices and stuff, so it's not all bland. But I love potato and stuff like that. A bit like like shepherd's pie and stuff you'd probably get in Australia as well. That's massively missing in Indonesia. I mean, it's rice pretty much every single meal, and I've been brought up on potatoes, so it's that's a challenge.
So you got a Varanid Mitchellii there hatching. Is that at your place, or is that's
in the UK, mate? Yeah, I managed to get hold of a legal group of them that have been in the UK for a long time. And the guy I've been pestering the guy for 2 years why he hadn't bred these things, and then he put them up for bloody sale and didn't tell me about them. I was like his number one customer. For some reason, he didn't tell him about them. Someone actually told him about them, and there's a group of 5 of them that I managed to get, and I had some pretty good success with them. I mean, they're machines. I've never had anything be as productive as those Mitchellii once you get them going, and the clutch sizes were big. I mean, you can get these sort of 21 to 26 eggs, I think, out of some of them. There's a really good paper from Perth Zoo, and they had to stop breeding them over there because they were just producing so many, and I'm guessing the other zoos just didn't want them. They're a cracking monitor to keep. I don't know why they're not more popular. I think you get them in Australia a bit now. Is it just one of those things where you're not allowed to keep them in some states again, or?
Look, I think you can't keep them in some states. In other states, they're not the easiest thing. There's a few of them around, but there's not hundreds in captivity.
What we've seen too, like 20 odd years ago, lizards, monitors, sorry, were, I don't want to say abundance, but there was a lot more floating around the hobby than there is now. And I don't know whether they're not people's thing or people aren't able to breed what they've got. Like a few people do breed them and breed them well and breed them regularly, but not like it was 20 years ago.
Yeah.
There's no bloody morphs. That's a problem.
Yeah, why would you want a beautiful orange and yellow lizard with black bars all over it? You know, it sounds horrible to me.
There's no albino, so it's no good.
So I know you're known for your monitors, and I didn't know this about you, but you used to keep venomous as well.
Yeah, in a big way. When I was young and stupid, Scott, you know, you grow out of it, and these risks and no,
so you're old and stupid.
they're amazing. I'm proper from the channel of. I hate seeing these YouTube stuff now. I was trained by a guy called Peter Blake in the UK, and he was super all on the protocol stuff. It was like a real science to what he always explained to me and the people I looked up. There was another guy called Ty Milson who was my boss in that shop that I worked at. He'd never been bitten by any venomous snake, and I kept that to a standard rather than freehand or showing it as a badge of honor. I know if you keep them for long enough, you usually end up getting bit. But my thing with keeping them was I'm going to try my hardest not to get bit by them. I'd never be scared of them or working with them, but the way I'd work with them would be safely and it would be very methodical. And not many people were doing it back then. That was, early 2000s when I was keeping them. Now I see these videos, I just see it as a total lack of respect for what people are doing. I don't even mind free handling if it's done properly at all, but like kissing the snakes and just fucking about, and that shows zero respect. And they're some of the best animals out there. Super intelligent, amazing to keep, and they just demand this respect that I see in that venomous community now. I don't know in Australia, but from what I see on YouTube and stuff is just no respect for these animals, and that really irks me.
I think there's two parts to it, right? So you've got venomous keepers, and then you've got sideshow people, and sometimes you've got some venomous people that free handle and all the rest of it. And if they want to free handle, I've got no issues with people free handling. There's a lot of people that I know that I've got a hell of a lot of respect for that do free handle, but they're not free handling because they're trying to get into a pissing contest. They're free handling because that's how they've always handled the snakes, and that's how they like to handle the snakes. And if somebody happens to film that person while they're doing it, they don't want to change the way they handle because someone's filming them. They just want to be authentic to how they do it, right? So whether there's a camera there or there isn't a camera there, they're picking up that taipan that way, or they're picking up that snake like that, or whatever. And you know what? Whichever way you want to do it, that's fine. I don't tend to agree with the ridiculousness that we see out there in the venomous community at times.
It reflects on the community as a whole in the eyes of the law.
Yeah,
unfortunately.
The way I was brought up in the UK, because you had to have that license and it was a lot of work to do it, nobody wanted to get bit because they could just ban it at that point.
Yeah.
And it had this really cool feel, because I was in that community for a while, of like having massive respect. It was like probably the most respected, scientific-based community out of the whole reptile people. The venomous guys were really into like their medicine, the venom itself, all that sort of stuff that went with the venomous keeping itself. And now it doesn't feel like that. It feels like it's completely seesawed the other way. And I'm glad I'm not a part of that community. It just makes me cringe. I'm sure.
I think to be fair, there is still that element of professionalism within the venomous community. It just isn't as.
It's just outweighed.
There's different parts of it. That's all.
Yeah, so. Yeah. Like I said, I don't want to bash it at all. I've got some really good friends that keep venomous in the UK, and they're super professional, really good guys, and I have amazing conversation with them. Like I said, it's almost like it's a step up from a lot of the other reptile keeping out there, because there's this element of the medical side of it and the scientific side of it as well, which I used to really enjoy. But yeah, there's it just makes me cringe, mate, with what I see now, and it's like, and it annoys me that there's those guys like yourselves and the people I know that do it so well, so professionally, and then you've got these absolute idiots that are going to ruin that completely, and they could ban venomous keeping. It'd be high up on the list to get that banned in most places, I'd imagine.
What did you used to keep, venomous wise?
Or pretty much everything I get my hands on. Yeah, I went crazy.
You're showing some, southern Philippines spitters or Samarensis,
they're my all-time favorites. Again,
Yeah.
I think it was probably because I was so successful. I bred 4 or 5. I had 4 or 5 clutches out of the ones I had. They were really cool. All the cobras are sort of my favorites. I kept inland taipans for a short period. Coastal taipan, they were actually the canine. I don't know if they're still canine now. The Papuan ones.
Yeah.
Still are this way.
Yeah, all the elapids was my thing, really. I wasn't too bothered. I kept some gaboon vipers and Nasicornis just to have in the shop, really, as they're sort of cool things. I'm not really a rattlesnake guy. I kept some Atrox and a few other things, but I was like elapids because I was young and stupid and thought that was a cool thing to have. And cobras are pretty cool. When they show up, I mean, if you keep cobras properly, for most of the time, they're just a rat snake because they tend to stop hooding up. That's why those Samar cobras are so cool because they'd always hood up, which was pretty cool to keep them.
And they're a spitter too, So Adam Sapiano saying it's too easy to get into venomous snakes in Victoria. Well, it depends on the venomous snake. Some are easy to get, some are a bit harder. So.
Where was that?
I think you guys, from what I can understand, have got probably the best system for keeping venomous snakes. It's tiered, isn't it?
Yeah,
it is now.
Yeah, so in South Australia, Queensland, and New South Wales, they all fall under a tiered system. So you've got to keep certain species before you can move on to others. Or show evidence that you've got experience to move on. So it does sort of prevent some of the, I'm going to go out tomorrow and get myself an inland taipan. Victoria currently doesn't have a tiered system, so you pay your money. If you're an adult and you can obtain it, then you can get whatever you want. Thankfully, though, that for the most part, a lot of people in the industry sort of self-regulate anyway, and so you're not going to pass on a taipan to somebody that's got no experience. But occasionally that does happen anyway. So
it's a worry.
Why? I don't know where we're up to.
Well, we've gone through the equipment. Okay. We've already spoken about it.
So, what's on your list to keep that you actually haven't been able to keep?
Oh, everything I want is from your part of the world, and I'm never going to be able to get it. Everything else I'm keeping here at the farm. I can't think of any species that I would want that I can't get now, Indonesian-wise. The big one for me would be Glebopalma, which I'm never going to be able to get. I would just like to see someone keeping them again in Australia that I could visit and just see what they would like to keep in captivity. I mean, that would be amazing for me. But they're probably my favourite monitor. In the world is those Glebopalma. So yeah, all the stuff that I can keep, I am keeping. All the stuff that I would want is from your neck of the woods.
The funny thing about Glebos is that they're probably the closest thing to like a micro parenti. And until people sort of see them, it's really hard to, when you see them in the flesh, once you've seen one and you can see that, and you know parentis, when you see the two of them together, you can see that. But it's sort of a hard thing to sort of see until you actually look at the two of them in the flesh.
Yeah, I think they're way cooler than a Parenti. I mean, Parentis are amazing, but I think they're just way cooler. Just, the way they live, the habitat they come from. I mean, to be able to keep, probably them outside with some really cool, like rock work and stuff and give them a really good enclosure. I bet you see some really cool behavior. Indoors, I bet they're a nightmare. I bet they smash themselves up completely. But if you had a really nice outdoor enclosure, I bet they're way cooler. And if you captive bred them as well, because, as you well know, Scott and Ty, they're some of the most alert, skittish monitors in the world, probably the most from what I've come up. But yeah, imagine getting captive bred ones and raising some up and then keeping those ones. I bet they're a joy.
Yeah, they're certainly an amazing looking lizard. And I mean, it wouldn't surprise me if, when we talk about Glebopalma, if we're not talking about multiple species as well.
Yes.
There seems to be differences between the Queensland animals and the NT animals, and it wouldn't surprise me if the WA animals or something else as well.
Yeah. Well, as we're probably going to see with those Glauterai as well, I'm sure it follows the same, probably the geographical barriers that have stopped them. That Isa population is the one that gets me. How they got down there, and it's so localized, it seems, down there from what I know. I don't know how far they go up north. There's not continuous. There's not like a continuous strip of them back up to the north, is there?
Yeah, there is.
Oh, there is.
It runs through. It sort of runs through different areas, but it runs through the Doomadgee area, so Lawn Hill, Riversley, through the Selwyn Range, into Cloncurry, Quamby area, to Isa, down towards the Jarrah. That range sort of runs up across from Lawn Hill into Doomadgee across to sort of the Bullo River region of, the Burraroola region of the Gulf Country, and it runs through. So there is rocky escarpments through there that they would be able to follow. So
okay, and that makes a bit more sense. They're just not often found in those sort of outside Isa, just because everyone goes to Isa to herp, or are they found? I haven't seen many pictures of them from anywhere that isn't, WA, NT, or Isa.
Yeah, so Isa is probably one of the easier places to get around up there, up that way.
Right.
But what people call Mount Isa could basically be anywhere between, 20 k's from Cloncurry to 150 k's to south of Isa to almost out towards Camberwell. So it's a very big area, and people just go, "Oh, yeah, that's Isa." But it might be an area that's the same size as the island that you're sitting on at the moment. So
yeah, for sure.
Where would you go herping if you could go anywhere in the world?
I've got like herping that I'd want to do because it's enjoyable, which is all in Australia. Australia is the mecca of herping. If anyone hasn't gone herping and they want to get into herping, keeping within the laws, because you always have to caveat with that with Australia. There's nowhere better in the world. There's nowhere easier. There's nowhere you'll find more species and some of the coolest species in the world, and be so comfortable. I've got to place stupid places that I've got to go because I'm writing that book on the tree monitors that I don't want to go to, that I've got to go to, like Millen Bay in Papua New Guinea proper, some other dodgy areas in Indonesia, where it's like, if I wasn't writing this book and I needed photos myself and to see this stuff, I probably wouldn't go there. It's like, I know it's not going to be enjoyable. There's a real high risk with some of the terrorist groups we've got in Indonesia and some of these places. And if it's for enjoyable, I need, like I said to you guys before, I need to go to Isa because I want to find those Glebopalma there. I've got to tick off. I mean, I was doing a list in Australia trying to tick off all the Audatria species in Australia. So that's always at the back of my mind. I'd love to tick off, do that list and tick off all the Audatria that I possibly can, because they're sort of, definitely up there with my favorite monitors. And Australia's got some of the most beautiful landscapes. Like you're herping and you're not even finding stuff. And you're like, some of this landscape you don't get anywhere else in the world. The Pilbara, the Kimberley, even some of the NT is like, oh my God, I don't even care that I'm not finding anything. That escarpment is, ancient, and you feel this real draw to it.
Yeah.
Indonesia is great, but it's like for the species, but it's like, it's a jungle. I hate jungle herping. I have to do it because, some of my favorite species and for this book. But if I could just herp escarpments, that would be me done. That's my favorite. Desert escarpments is where it's at for me, for sure.
So what's your favorite herp trip been then you've been on so far?
Australia, I'm guessing.
I've been on so many. Like it's for like different reasons. The first trip I did to Australia, like a proper herp trip, was 2005, I guess. 2005. 2015, sorry.
10-year gap there.
Yeah. I always get confused. I was 24. It's just when I shut the shop down. So it was in 2000, I think it's whenever, 2014, 15. And we did a trip from Perth all the way up to Darwin and then down to Alice Springs. And I didn't think I'd find much, and we found some of the most, my favorite species of Audatria. I got Glauterai on that trip, those bush eye on that trip, and it really opened like the world of like of herping really, and how enjoyable it can be. And Australia's, I can't bang on about it. It's like it's got some of the best landscapes, some of the best beaches, with the best beaches, and all that sort of stuff. And it was really enjoyable trip. So that was like a real good one, because that's the first time I actually found any monitor species, or definitely any of the Audiatria species in the wild. So that one will always stay in my head. And then I've made various trips since, obviously, to Australia. But then I've got obviously the Indonesian stuff of finding, stuff that probably people have never found before. I can't think of another person. Maybe Natusha's seen Risingrai in the wild, but apart from that, I don't know any other Westerner that's seen Risingrai.
So that's on Rossel Island, yeah?
The Risingrai, no, that is in Missoul.
Missoul, sorry.
Yeah. I need to go to Roswell. That's one of the ones I don't really want to go to, but I'm going to have to go to, because there's a tree monitor there, and then there's another one, Ferguson Island. It's one of them. Indonesia was always really scary until you go there, but Papua New Guinea proper has got a real edge about it, and you're like, fuck, I could end up in some real trouble there. If you start traveling around Indonesia, for the most part, it's actually really safe, and it's quite touristy now. There's not many people that go to Papua New Guinea and herp about the place like they do in Australia and in Indonesia. So it's like there's an edge until I get over there and see what's going on over there. It's like a trip I don't really want to do, but I will end up doing.
I think there is a few places that are like bird places that are doing bird tours in parts of New Guinea now. Certainly on the northern side of New Guinea, it seems to be a lot better than the southern side of New Guinea. And I mean, that might be the way to do it, I suppose.
I'm speaking to a guy from Brisbane, actually, Des Hume. He's been to Roswell and found those bogota. He's got the only picture I can find of that species, and he seems to think it's fine. So that's what I mean. Indonesia was a bit like that until you actually get there and you do it. I'm sure there's some really rough areas. Port Moresby, for example, sounds, if you actually go out of the airport, sounds pretty bad place to go. So maybe just stick to the airport and get to the islands, and I'm sure it's fine.
We might throw up some pictures of some of your herping exploits. You're a pretty incredible photographer too, mate. I certainly like some of these pictures. A bit of a visual feast here. So I might get you just to talk us through some of these images that you've sent across to us.
Yep.
So it looks like we've got either a bushy or a Cordilleniata sitting in or maybe a Gilleny sitting inside a bit.
I wish it was a Cordo, mate. They're my unicorn. I keep going back to WA, and either something happens that stops me getting to their habitat, or I just don't find them. I find 100 depressor and no Cordos. So I'd love to say it was Cordo, but no, that's a bush eye in a pretty well-known spot that was actually given to me by Brian Bush. And it's one of them weird things, as you both probably know. I couldn't find them for ages, and then I found the first one. Every time I go there now, I find them. I tripping over them, and I actually don't look for them. I wouldn't go and look for them again, because you have to be, that one was pretty lucky. You could actually see it in the hollow, but to get to some of those, those pygmy mulga sort of monitors, you have to sort of take the bark off like we were talking before and crack a bit. And I'm not into that. I've seen them. I don't need to go back and disturb any more of that habitat. I'm done with them. That's it's Insulanicus now, but
Insulanicus,
again, that's just in Adelaide River. Again, I think a pretty well-known spot. I think everyone's taken a picture on that rock. That's a Hamersliensis from the type locality, which many people don't bother going to, which is a nice little creek down there. They were pretty interesting. You said earlier about a interesting observation you've seen with reptiles. These guys will actually wiggle their tail when you get too close to them. They'll really wiggle it like mad, which I hadn't seen in a lot of the other monitors. And we actually found one which had half of its tail completely cut off. Obviously something had grabbed it. Maybe we found some panoptes or something there. These are probably one of my favorite monitors. I don't know why. This is what I call a true King Aurum. So these are the ones from that Timber Creek area, which is their type locality. And these are like a proper rock monitor. The ones we got in Europe from that Turkey Creek sort of area, which are like their heads look like an Aki still. There's got to be some speciation going on there with the difference between this is like a dwarf Kimberley rock monitor almost, the shape of it.
I wonder if some of the ones that are kicking around in captivity aren't hybrids.
Hybrids of what though? With these?
Yeah, I reckon it could be King Aurum and Acanthurus crossed over, or King Aurum and Story crossed over at some point.
Weird, yeah. They're just none of them I've ever seen in captivity have got tails that are as long. They've got long tails, but nowhere near what these guys have. And these are like I say, these are like a proper rock monitor. They've got that flattened head, and none of the ones we got in Europe have got that at all. And I've never seen anyone keep these in captivity. I don't know if many people keeping them in Australia or not.
I think a few people have got them over here. Certainly, I remember looking at King Aurum when we were in Germany, and I looked at the King Aurum over there, and I was like, "That's not a King Aurum."
Yeah, literally. Yeah,
doesn't look like a King Aurum that I've seen here in Australia. So it was a very different looking animal. So
yeah, they got a long tail, but they're shorter than those proper King Aurum. And like I said, the head structure, the ones we got in captivity, it's like a bulldog. It looks like a store-eye head, where those ones is a proper flattened rock monitor, sort of proper rock monitor. That's a
Riveters.
That's it. Yeah, that was actually in exactly the same place as that Hammersiensis. They're so cool to find because they just don't care. As you know, you guys, they're just not bothered. Galdai you can get pretty close to, and then they just run off. Those Panoptes, when they seem to get to a certain size, are not bothered. I mean, I was following it around. It was coming up to me at some point, and I just managed to get that picture of it standing tripod in there, which I always wanted to get.
Have you ever seen or worked with the Merauke Panoptes?
Yeah, we got loads here. Yeah, loads.
Do you think they are a valid subspecies, or do you think they're just normal Panoptes? Because I don't see them as being any different to regular Panoptes that you see in the top end or Western Queensland.
Yeah, no, exactly. I was going to say they're definitely different to these Rubidus, but yeah, they're exactly the same as what you'd get in, Darwin or somewhere like that. Yeah. I don't know if I've seen any really big ones. I've seen them going across from Broome. There still be Panoptes, wouldn't they? Heading in the Kimberley. I've seen big ones there. I'm yet to see any Indonesian ones that are that big. But I might raise some up and do some more breeding with them. But yeah, all of them seem to be pretty small, but they look exactly the same. I can't see any difference in the look of them.
Considering you could walk between Darwin and Merauke 8,000 years ago, and I guarantee you the Panoptes were walking along that area. It certainly wouldn't surprise me if they were the same thing, and that the subspecies isn't worth the paper it's written on in that case.
No, definitely. There's so much stuff like that that's on both sides. I can't believe no black-headed pythons have turned up in Merauke. I would have thought they would have made it there. But...
Yeah, for sure.
Just another Insulannicus or Breachy, just in the Adelaide River there.
Yep. What's the worst injury you've had on a herp trip?
Bloody jumping off a rock for the first Glebopalma. I got a flash at. I wouldn't even say we found it or thing. It literally went from one crack to another. I twisted round. I was up on a rock trying to peer to see where it had gone, and then I landed. I'm literally sideways on my ankle, and I was like, my ankle's broke. I was with my ex-missus and an Australian guy. Neither of them could drive. I think we're pretty far out. We're in a pretty well-known spot in Litchfield where you get Glebopalma. That drive into there is pretty crappy. It's like a proper four-wheel drive to get in. But I think it was my left foot, and we had an automatic, so I was all right. And then actually, I for sure thought I'd broken it. It swelled up to a balloon, but I don't know if you guys must have known Gunther Schmieder. He was he was up in the top end at that time, and he'd invited me out. I said, I don't care if it's broken. I'm going out with Gunther. We actually went looking for Insulannicus and Glebos the next day, and we found nothing. But it was to be able to speak to a sort of legend like that, and we used to talk back and forth. I got a picture in his book in the end. And he was a proper legend. I mean, really nice guy. So yeah, screw the broken ankle. I just walked it off like a man.
Well, he's not a flesh wound, as the greats in Monty Python would say.
I've got a really horrible picture of it. It was black and completely swelled up. And my missus is like, you can't go out. I'm going out. It's
Sounds to me how you said you hadn't been bitten by a venomous. You might have been touched up by a little adder or something like that.
I'll tell you what, the worst one I had with going back to the venomous, and this is how stupid you can be. I got done in the eye by a Naja nigricincta, the zebra spitting cobra.
Oh yeah.
And that was a painful experience and a sobering. You know when you get super complacent, I think that's what happens with the venomous stuff. Going back to that, I didn't have any goggles on. I was reaching for my the lid was open. I'd realised I hadn't got any goggles on. I was reaching for my goggles and got whacked in the eye. Like they're like snipers, those African spitters. Like, you fucking idiot! It's like, of course that was going to happen. So, but yeah, no, never a bite.
I remember seeing a video not too long ago where a guy was holding a siamensis, and he's holding the siamensis and he's doing the moving his head around to try and get it to thingo, and it just gave him both barrels straight into the eye. And so then he's turned his head and he's still free handling this cobra, and you sit there and go, well, it can still bite. But yeah, thankfully it didn't bite him. So we're looking at an amazing looking glaude eye here that doesn't read books and is sitting in a tree.
That's up in Kununurra, so they'll be described as something else now, I think, or they're on their way to speaking to Gavin. I think he's working on splitting those up. They're definitely distinct. I don't know if they're going to be a valid species or subspecies. I don't know what they are. But yeah, that was one that was chasing skinks. Actually, I seen the skink first, and then we were literally in the car park in Kununurra, and that one was chasing after skinks, and then it spent most of the time in the tree. So yeah, they definitely will utilize trees and tree hollows, but that's right next to a big escarpment where I found all the other ones I've ever found have been on the escarpment.
There's been a couple of papers that have spoken about twitching in the tails in leaf litter with Tristis, glaude eye, and a couple of other species where they've put their tail into leaf litter and they've twitched it to try and get things like carlias and things like that to go and hunt whatever's moving around in the leaf litter, thinking it's an insect, and then the lizards are then punching and eating those carlias that are running through. So it could be a bit of court alluring type thing going on there too when they get excited.
Oh yeah, I'm pretty sure that one smashed the skink before I managed to run over to it. I seen a load of commotion and I seen the skink run up the tree, and I'm sure he went and grabbed it. And by the time I got my camera out, he'd smashed it down. Those carlia and stuff are everywhere. In Australia and in Indonesia, I bet they get whacked by everything that's bigger than them, pretty much.
Yeah, 100%. And so we've got one of the Scalaris complex here.
Yeah, that's Scalaris from Darwin CBD, pretty much, and pretty well known park up there. Again, they were a unicorn for me for about 3 years. Going to this exact spot, and I could never find one. And then I found one, and now they're in every single tree. I was just there in November, and every single tree's got a Scalaris in. It's just sod's law. I worked my ass off to try and get them. So, I mean, they're pretty much everywhere.
Probably more accurately call them similis, wouldn't we? As opposed to Scalaris, because Scalaris are from Boogle Bay. They're those black banded things.
Yeah, that's. I don't know why you Australians haven't sorted that out yet. That's just so obvious. There's a complex there of stuff, but yeah, it's probably a similis. For sure, it looks very much like similis. Shark Bay Woma.
So we just needed to throw a snake in there for.
That's what I did, mate. I was like, "There's got to be a snake here somewhere." And
what a snake! You're throwing in a Shark Bay Woma that's got a good-sized feed in it, by the look of it.
Yeah, it's got to be some sort of gould eye or blue tongue, I think. From there, just found it straight on dark, basically, just out of Denham, just heading towards Monkey Mire from Denham. I couldn't believe it. I mean, they're meant to be so rare. I think they're turning up quite often. But when I found that one, they were still sort of pretty rare. Not many people have found them.
That's bush eye.
Another bush eye. Yeah, they're dead cool. They're easy to photograph. That's an in situ Pilbrensis in Marble Bar, or just outside Marble Bar. Big old male, pretty beaten up. But that I need to get back to that area. Marble Bar is one I'd really like to go back to. There's some really cool escarpments and stuff out there, and it seems like you'd get left alone. It's proper outback out there, which I kind of like when I go to Australia now. Hopefully just get left alone.
Yeah. There's a bit of a different look at Aki.
Yeah. I don't think many people have found these. Are like in the Hammersley Ranges, and they don't act like normal Akis. These are I've only ever found these high off the ground in rocks, so they're not like your typical Aki that you'll find underneath, the sort of fallen logs, and there's not that sort of habitat there really. Anyway, in the Pilbara, it's all in that particular area of the Pilbara, it's all just like those like pebbles, basically. I don't know a better way. Iron rock pebbles, and then you've got these bigger bits. There's an escarpment behind that photo towards me, basically, as I'm taking the photo of it. There's a big escarpment there, typical Pilbara. You get these seams of iron ore, and that's where you seem to find them. And they look very, very different. They're almost more store-eye looking than a normal Aki. But yeah, they're pretty hard to turn up. I've been pretty lucky with them. I've sent Ross to the similar sort of area, or the exact area actually, and he hasn't been able to get them. These live sympatrically with the Cygnotus, so you find about 20 Cygnotus for every one of them.
And when you've been sitting in the Pilbara for a long time, this is where you want to be, sitting in the water. But you've got to, obviously, this isn't the Pilbara. It looks like it's
that's Litchfield.
Bully Rockhole or something, is it? The Litchfield?
It's not. Which one's Bully? No, it's one random one I'd never been to before. It's quite far out. It's about as far out of that Litchfield Park as you can get. I can't remember it. You're not allowed in the water there. It's an Aboriginal site, so you're not actually allowed. Where that Bewley, you're actually allowed. I found quite a few there. But no, I'd struggle to find Mertens when I look for them. This trip, I did a family trip in November with my mum and my uncle, and I was like, we found one in I think it was in Bewley, and I was like, this is really rare. They, you don't really find them, and it was acting, it was coming out. And acting, wasn't running away and stuff. I was like, this is really rare. And then every single rock hole we went to, or every single pool we went to, and my uncle was giving me a gift. He was like, yeah, once in a lifetime, this, Chris. It's only happened 4 times so far. I was like, that's never ever happened before. I don't know if it was just the time of the year, or they. I mean, I was speaking to Gavin. He reckoned they hadn't been smashed by the toads that much. Mertens. Which I always used to use as an excuse when I wasn't finding them. I was like, oh, they've been smashed by the toads, but apparently they didn't believe it. But yeah, they were literally in every single permanent bit of water I could find. There was a Mertens in, and they're a cracking lizard. I mean, they're so outgoing. Like you see there, I was in 2 foot of one. You can get perfect shots of them without ever having to disturb them. And they're just like a scaly otter, pretty much.
Yeah. And that looks like the denizen from around the Pine Creek area, Primordius.
Primordius, yeah. It's a really stupid spot. You would never think they were there. I was lucky enough to get given it by someone. I was like, I'm never going to find anything here. It's literally on the side of the road. And I managed to flip one. I was like, Christ, if they can live here, the amount I must have driven past. And it was one side of it was completely burnt, and the other side that I was looking in was actually where I took that photo. There wasn't any there. My mate went to the burnt side. I was like, why are you bothering looking there? He lifted up the first rock, and there was one underneath it. So you just never know. But they're cool. That's a broom tristus, which is really, really pretty. That one just turned up in the hotel. I couldn't have done any. I was on the walk into the pool, and it turned up. So yeah, really, really nice. From that area.
The first tristus I ever got was the same.
Yeah,
I was literally walking to the pool. It was running up the enclosure that the pool was sitting inside in Alice Springs. So I was quite happy about that. It was very convenient.
Yeah, an easy one. So that's from that previous family trip. I wasn't really aware of them too much. So Gavin put me onto these. He was calling them yellow-headed tristas. You get around Kakadu.
Yeah.
He gave me a spot in some fence posts, which I did manage to go and find one in. But obviously you can't get any good pictures of it. And then I was walking to one of the escarpments and happened to look under a little bit of bark. The first tree I looked at, right next to the path, and that was underneath it. And they're, like I said, they're cracking. And then obviously the holy grail for me. 10 years, a broken ankle, and then managed to turn it up in the spot I've been looking, which is probably the most well-known spot for them up in Litchfield.
So the Lost City area of Litchfield,
Yeah. Which I managed to get the cool shot with the cool background. But now I want to go find a proper one now. I'd like to find one around like Adelaide River or maybe in the Kimberley or those ISA populations, because they seem to be pretty in high abundance there, even though you don't often see them just because of how elusive they are, more than them not being there. But yeah, I was glad to get hold of one after 10 years of heartache. I mean, that flash of that yellow tail is pretty much what I'd seen for 10 years. And then they're not, as you well know, you guys, they're not like Glauterai. Glauterai you can spook and they'll come back out. Those glebos you spook and they're done for the day, it seems.
or two, or three, or 4 days.
Yeah. You know, you'll sit there. I've done it. You'll sit there. You know, one's in a crack for 4 or 5 hours, and it never appears again. Where if that's a glaucori or something, they're really curious, and they tend to come back out after half an hour, 20 minutes.
Yeah. And so we've jumped countries now.
Yes.
That's a pretty incredible animal.
Yeah, so that's the first crocodile monitor I found. The guys got lucky on the previous trip, which I'll be doing a podcast on next week. We managed to find another one, and this is another one where I would have said, "Oh yeah, this is once in a lifetime." So yeah, big old. I need to stop saying that maybe, or maybe, or actually probably maybe say it more. But yeah, that's a big old Salvador in Batanta, which was, I mean, that literally stayed in that Y of that tree for like an hour. We actually got a bit bored of looking at it, or the guys got a bit bored of looking at it and tried to go and catch it, which didn't work. It was just way too big, and it managed to make its escape. But it posed perfectly there for that photo. And yeah, just to see an apex predator like a crocodile monitor in the wild is, you know, that's what dreams are made of. This is one of the boma I had found. So I put a lot of work into finding these. Not many people knew exactly where they come from. The traders have sort of kept them pretty quiet for good reasons, obviously. So I went
on Wagyu.
On Wagyu, yeah. So I went to pretty much every village. I knew that the paper had been written and they'd said they come from Far East Wagyu.
Yeah.
But there was no exact location, and they'll tell you anything over here, the traders, just to keep you away from it. But we started in sort of central Wagyu, and I went to every single village all the way along, which is quite a challenge. And we got led on some real wild goose chases. You know, we're going around this habitat. I know enough about tree monitors now to know the sort of habitat. They were taking me on this like limestone cast rock with these little shrubs and stuff. And they're like, yeah, we found them here, or they found them here before. And then you do this big, you know, you're dying by the end of it, this, you know, big trek round. And I said, when was the last time you actually seen one? Oh yeah, 15 years ago. And we seen one. Like, oh, Christ. Anyway, I managed to go all the way along and did get to Far East Wagyu. And the guys there had 2 in a bucket. And I was like, right, we're on. We found the area. We went out the next day and found one in 15 minutes, one in half an hour. So yeah, they're there. I mean, they're across the whole of Wagyu for sure. But you just need someone that knows an area that they can take you where they are. And you know, I've turned up quite a few of them now.
Did you see Micropicus over there? The Micropicus Ikahiga over there. You get all black ones on that island.
Yeah, yeah. We found 2 actually in a place called Sapacrem, which is like the main village. Yeah, and they're just jet black. I'm always a bit wary because they got that stegnotus there.
Yeah.
That iridis, which looks exactly like the ones you find on Salawati, the Ikehika there. I found one on the last trip we did with Ryan and Nick. It was a little iridis. I knew it was an iridis, and we were on Wagyu. I was like, well, what happens if the juvenile ones start off black and white and then they turn all black when they get to adults? So I was like, oh, I did go to tail it, but I was, you know, it's one of those ones where you half tail it and sort of glad that it got away. So I tailed it. It was tiny.
It wouldn't surprise me if there's a western and an eastern Micropicus as well. There's quite a distinction between the eastern population and the western animal. So
I think the ones on Batanta, from what I've never found them on Batanta, I think the ones on Batanta are black as well.
Yeah, okay.
And then Salawati is really gorgeous, black and white. I mean, they're a really stunning snake.
We've got another one here.
Another boma, yeah.
Yeah.
That's the first Prasinus I think we've found. So I went on that trip with Brian in September last year to find it. So I left these one until last. There's 4 in Raja Ampat, and then I thought these would be the easiest ones. I went on a trip before and didn't actually find them just because the weather didn't work out. But yeah, these are pretty common in the right sort of areas. So we managed to turn up a few, and then on the previous trip, the one just gone now, we managed to find another one. But pretty iconic. It was nice to see the sort of the variation in them. And yeah, I mean, that's the tree monitor of the tree monitors, really.
Yeah.
And just another one from the same sort of location.
Same location. So these are
all the ones
northwestern New Guinea.
Yeah, so these are all from Salawati Island. So that's the only place I've looked for them. But yeah, like I said, going to this now, it brings us on nicely. I think there's a vogelkop population. I think these bluer ones, surprisingly, come from Manokwari. I'm yet to see a really blue one from Salawati. And then the bluer ones we have at the farm seem to be from Manokwari, which ties in weirdly with the more bluer green tree pythons you find there. So there might be some sort of selective pressure for them to be a bit more blue there. But yeah, I think there's a vogelkop population. And then you've got a northern population, which is your Jayapura, as we can see on the right there, and then your Merauke one, which marries up pretty much. Well, it marries up identical to what you see with the green tree pythons, and then some of the other species. There's crown pigeons that do follow the same sort of pattern, and you've got those biogeographical barriers that are probably stopping gene flow. Definitely north and south, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think so. You've got other things like there's a number of other species out there that probably have similar issues like that as well. It may or may not be split out at the moment. Doesn't necessarily mean that they aren't different. It just means at the moment something that's regarded as a single species may actually be a complex. But whether or not the differences are significant enough for either subspecific or specific recognition is another headache to deal with as well. But
with monitors,
some interesting morphology between them.
We just split them with monitors. It's you Python guys and you snake guys that have all the problem with all this DNA and everything. Speaking to Nick and Ryan, it seems if it looks a bit different for the monitors, would
Varanid. One fucking genus for all of this.
Oh no, yeah.
This is in the same genus as bushy, as a Komodo, as a mangrove.
Yeah, you know why that is.
You'll split the species, but you won't touch the genus.
Yeah, that's because we're stupid and we just want to keep it Varanus because that's nice and easy to keep in front of everything. But when it actually comes down to the species, we split away for sure.
Yeah, it's one of those mysteries out there that eventually somebody's going to split them properly and just go, right, okay, we're going to start adopting all the different genus names.
You got all those subgenus that are there already. It's just nobody's been brave enough to elevate them, I guess, to the genus level. I mean, the subgenus you got for all of them makes perfect sense to me. They seem to be split off pretty nicely. You got all your tree monitors in one genus, all your Odaptera in another one. So I just don't know why they haven't elevated it. I mean, nobody's.
Yeah, it's probably an interesting question, and I must admit it's something that is sort of I've questioned myself a little bit on. If when we revised the lizard book, who knows what might happen? We may turn around and cause some trouble. But at the same time, it's like I struggle with it a little bit. The fact that the people aren't using them as different genera, because they are a genus only works if it is a grouping of its most closely related species, right? At what point in time do you go? And look, I'm not doubting that monitors are more closely related to other monitors than other different families. Yeah. But at what point in time does it become unreasonable to say that they're all the same thing? You're better off elevating the subgenera into full genera, be done with it, and then have your groups that sit there within them.
It's probably because we've got that subgenera, and I'm guessing that's what the names would have to be of the genera.
Yeah, you'd adopt those names.
There's nobody who wants to do that because the work's already been done. Really, you're really just doing the work that somebody couldn't be bothered to, elevate it. Nobody's going to get a new name out of it or anything like that, and that seems to be a bit of a sticking point for a lot of it. If they can't come up with some of themselves, then why should they bother doing the work? Maybe there's an element of that to it.
Yeah, I don't know. It's one of those things, I suppose. I think in reality is that you shouldn't be doing the work to try and get a name. You should be doing the work to try and improve the science.
Yeah, but then you look at that green tree python paper.
Yeah,
it's like that those subspecies names are there because they wanted the names, and why? I mean, they were really divergent. Why not make them full species? Because they are for sure. I mean, that's what it feels like with a lot of this stuff. Is like they don't want to go the extra push, but if they can get the name in there, then that's their bit done, really. Maybe.
Yeah, I don't know. I think maybe too. in the case of green pythons, maybe they need to do a little bit more sampling and in some of those other islands that they weren't able to get samples from, to really tease out the population genetics in those populations, to see if they are different taxa.
I mean, the annoying thing with taxonomy is it's just a theory, really, that just gets accepted. I mean, I don't accept that Stimson thing at all. I do not think they're children's pythons.
Yeah, there's a difference between taxonomy and nomenclature. And
this is a dangerous topic. I think we're going to pick someone off somewhere.
I think you're probably right.
We'll get the views up.
Or the hate mail, one or the other.
Yeah. I think the difference between the taxonomy and the nomenclature is that the nomenclature is our way of explaining what the taxonomy is best fit. But the thing is that taxonomy is something that's not static. As we go and look at things, we get more information. We can change our opinions on what our ideas are at the time. So, the more evidence that you have, the better picture that you have, and from that, you may change your conclusions at times. And to sit there and only use the same conclusion and not not have that adjust by the evidence, I'm not so sure is the right way forward on it. So, whether these things are actually different species or subspecies or ESUs or what, who knows? But until they do a little bit more work, or until more work gets done, it's going to be hard to tease those out.
Yeah, I mean, the thing what I'm pushing with them so much, it goes back to what we were saying about keeping those localities pure, is there's so many of these being crossed together in Europe, in the UK, and it's like that's if they do become, which I'm backing, even if they don't, but if they do, then you've messed up that gene pool. And I'm sort of, not to be the martyr or whatever it is, I'm telling you, I think they're different right now. So take that on board maybe a little bit, because otherwise Indonesia stops exporting, and you've just now got a mess of Meraukis and Sarong ones that are actually two different species.
I completely agree with you. And look, reality of it is 20 years ago, Razingarai was a former president.
Yeah.
Right. Cordensis was a former president. Bakari was a former president. You know what I mean? Like it didn't. Not that long ago, these things were all regarded as being the same taxa.
Yeah, I mean, these are really close together. Rising Grind, that one is dubious. I keep reading the paper about them, and the divergence between them two is sticky. I mean, I think the only argument you got for these guys is they're now separated, so they're probably on their own species trajectory anyway, and it's unlikely that they're it's going to be connected to the mainland anytime soon. But yeah, if you split, they wouldn't be split if it was a python. They're so close. If you go on that DNA and morphological data, they're basically lighter green Prasinus. So but I see them as different species. They're separated, so definitely won't be breeding them with a Prasinus, that's for sure.
Is the hole in the picture there, is that the home hole for that particular lizard there?
No, that's actually the one that was hunting those Carlia in. So I'm guessing the Carlia was because they often, or a Moya or whatever it was, they're often on those, those coconut trees basking. I think it seen that monitor, it shot into that hole, and we actually stumbled across it when that monitor was putting its nose into that hole. It got it out, and it did actually grab hold of it and eat it. So yeah, I think it was just hunting. It's not actually living in that hole.
So, you've got these photos of these amazing lizards that, for all intents and purposes, are usually very high up in the trees. How are you climbing these palms, or is
so that picture there is fully in situ? So that's literally as we found it. You couldn't ask for a better picture, and I don't think I've taken a better picture of a tree monitor. That's exactly how we found it, and it even span round and had a look at us. I mean, I can't pose one as good as that, but no, all the other ones you see on the trees and stuff, obviously that is not in its natural form. That's not in situ. So they're basically all the islanders. If you get with the hunters, they've all been taught basically to do a bit of history into the tree monitors. The first tree monitors that have been collected all come from Aru, so that was your Varanid Beckeri, and they'd obviously worked out the best way to find them, which is a long bamboo pole with a sliding noose on the end. And then the other guys on these islands weren't aware of they were aware of the tree monitors. They weren't aware anyone wanted them. So the guy in Sarong, So funnily enough, even though where Aru is, everything from Aru basically goes to Sarong and then out, because that's just the nearest main port. So everything from Aru goes to Sarong and it's sent out. So that local trader in Sarong organized, for example, for like the blue tree monitors, the guys from Aru to take a boat to where the blue tree monitors was and basically hunt them. And they were in doing that, the locals are obviously thinking, well, you're taking my animals, you need to teach us how to do this as well. So these guys from Aru went to Mizul, they went to Waigeo, and they went to Batanta and taught them how to collect them with these bamboo nooses, basically. So it's a long bit of bamboo with a noose on the end. Tree monitors are pretty inquisitive / stupid, maybe. They often think that it's usually a bit of carton, so it's usually like a yellow color or white color, and they often think it's actually food. Even there's 5 people standing underneath them, they're in the canopy, food, and then they go to bite it, and then they're pretty easy to noose. After the first noosing, they know what's going on. So if you miss it on that first noosing, they're off, and they just retreat into the highest tree. If you can get it on that first one, you're sweet. And like I said, all those pictures that you see of me posing them on the logs is ones we've caught out of a higher tree, and then put on a branch for a nice photo. So that's pretty interesting chlorostigma. I'd never bothered to catch them in Waigeo. That we hadn't found any bomai, so I think the guys have got bored and went and found one of those. And then me and Brian managed to pose it. It's got really interesting orange sort of snout on that one.
It's certainly a bit different.
I don't know if that's just as a juvenile. I can't see that I've seen any adult ones that have that, but I mean, just a pretty monitor, and it was pretty well behaved sitting on that log for me.
So when you don't want to look at monitors, you got to look at dinosaurs as well.
Oh, just incredible! I've never this trip we did with Ryan and Nick. I'd never actually bothered to get my hands on one, and I've never actually seen the ones you usually see are very small, and you see them just running across the water. The guys, obviously, that we're with managed to grab this one. I don't even know where it was, but yeah, I don't know if they've. That's meant to be Ambonensis, so Hydrosaurus ambonensis, if you believe what's on iNaturalist, but I'm pretty sure it's going to be.
It's missing a lot. It's missing that rostral horn that Ambonensis usually has.
So I think that's a new species. I'm sure the Raja Ampat stuff is different, and I mean Ambon is miles away from where I don't know what the range of Ambonensis actually is. But yeah, I'm sure that's probably a new species of Hydrosaurus from there. But they're not really my thing. They're very cool. Makes for a very impressive photo. It's basically a living dinosaur.
Yeah, I mean, it's almost the sort of thing that you think that a television show out of the 1930s would substitute that as a monster killing everything. Godzilla. Wouldn't surprise me if Godzilla was actually modelled on a Hydrosaurus.
Oh, there you go. I'm going to have to use the toilet quick because I've been holding it so long. I'm sure you can.
So I mean, this Hydrosaurus here is an absolutely stunning animal, that's for sure.
This podcast has cost you a fortune. Guess what we're getting?
So these are Razingarai that he was showing us before, and then we've got a Macraei here from Batanta. So we'll just hold off there. Has anyone got any questions that they might want to ask? Feel free to reach out and we can put them up there for Chris to answer. So, all right.
Cool.
Pause for a minute, guys.
Chris is a brilliant guest.
Yeah, certainly. There's some interesting sort of things talking about seeing these things in the wild, and certainly working with these tree monitors are very different to a lot of our monitors that we've got over here.
He's bloody good at it.
Yeah. So, have you always wanted to keep things like presidents, or is that something you're interested in keeping or something?
You just didn't learn enough.
Sorry, I hate doing that because it's the worst.
Well, we completely just failed in for the last fucking couple of minutes, but that's all right.
Sorry, mate. I literally, Mike did it to me on the last podcast because he needed to go. I went to the toilet and he was really good at it, and then he came back and I just chatted the most amount of rubbish that come into my head that I've ever spoken in my life. So I do apologise.
No, it's all right.
We just did it.
yeah. It's all right. No one will notice.
Well, I was sitting there, I was looking at your photos. I'm like, well, I can't really speak to these. Other than, wow.
And I'm like, fuck, awkward silence, shit.
Oh, yeah. It's all right. Anyway. I mean, yeah, you're all good. Trust me.
So off to Batanta now.
Yeah, so these are some of the first macrae I found in the wild, going back a few years now. But, I mean, there's not much more to say about. It's a bright blue lizard that's just absolutely insane. You can't believe that it's there. It doesn't make sense that it's really there with that coloration. Are
they fairly? Is there a lot of variation in how blue they are?
Yeah, so more and more we're seeing this variant of this greenback variant where they got blue arms and blue legs with a very green back. I've got a little bit of a theory about it. So the first blue tree monitors we were seeing in captivity all come from the island of Iam, and they were all standard blue, just absolutely textbook normal. And the numbers there have been depleted. So they started going to collect more of them on the mainland. Now, this mainland population does have that standard blue one, but more often than not, the ones I actually find are this greenback variety. So they've got this greenback with these blue arms, basically. And I don't know, I was speaking to Nick about it. Obviously, Nick's a real big morph guy. Whether it's a naturally occurring morph that's actually maybe taken over, a bit like we see with like Nauta, the most common one of those in Tanimbar. So that's the Tanimbar scrub python is now a double recessive. So it's a patternless exanthic is your most common one. And then also what we see with the green tree pythons, the juveniles trending towards being yellow through a lot more of their range and losing that red. So it does worry me a little bit that maybe these blue tree monitors one day might all be green, but with that macrae pattern.
Maybe that's just telling you that it's a pattern variation of a green tree monitor.
Well, possibly, yeah.
Maybe they're just Prasinus, just a funny looking Prasinus.
I mean, they're so close. The Salawati, where you get Prasinus, and Batanta is like 3 kilometers apart, or just a short bit of there's Sagawin Bay, basically a short bit of sea between them. And I'm sure they raft across there, possibly even now. And then they were definitely connected. In the early in the Pleistocene. It's going back as early as 20,000 years ago.
Yeah.
That's green tree python. You can tell that I really love green tree pythons. No, I do love green tree pythons. Fucking paint. This was on the last night of the previous trip. Obviously, Nick obviously wants to see him, but Ryan was dying to see when he never found a green tree python. I think he'd been to the Iron Range and not turned one up there. So we found this one the last night at the last hour. Basically, I was ready to go all night. I think the guys, I'd gone trekking up basically way high because there's basically in Waigo where this one was found. It's behind a homestay and it's basically a gorge. And you can pretty much go. I'd never been right to the top where it starts flattening out. It's like a big steep hill. I was like, right, if I'm going to go all night, I'm going to go as far up the hill as I can, wait up there for a bit, and then walk. And by the time I walk down, it'll probably be 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning. That's what I was expecting to do. So I'd left Nick and Ryan. I'd gone off with a local just to see how far you could get up this hill. And I must have been a good an hour and a half in front of the lads. I'd found a Dilophus, Lophiusaurus. Lophiusaurus dilophus, which is a lot like your Boyd's forest dragon. And I was like, this is going to be the find of the night. So and they just sit in the tree. So I was sat there, having a cigarette. Where the hell are they? They must be behind me. Little did I know they'd found this green tree python in situ, and they were trying to get hold of me, and they didn't realize how high they'd gone. So they obviously got a load of pictures. This is real herping etiquette, and I don't know if I would have been, if it had been a monitor, I don't know if I would have been his plight, but they left it exactly how it was, didn't disturb it at all, left it in situ because they wanted me to see it, which I wasn't really that bothered about. And I said, they tracked up to me and said, "Have you found one? Have you found one?" I said, "No, but I found this Lophiosaurus. It's really cool." And they said, "We've got one back here." So this Lophiosaurus, which is a very cool animal, had sort of gone out the window. And then I realized how far ahead I trekked of them, basically. And we got lost several times on the way out. And there was a bit of commotion between Nick and Ryan of, "Oh, it's not going to be there." I said, "Guys, it's a green tree python. It's going to be there. They don't do anything. They're boring." And we got back down to it, and it was set up in sort of perfect ambush. This is actually after I disturbed it. I went and posed it. I've got some other pictures of it actually just on a twig, basically, exactly how you'd expect to find them coming down for ambush. And like I said, it hadn't moved from when they'd seen it, an hour and a half ago. So it was more cool for me to that's Ryan's first green tree python. And I was pretty glad I didn't have to stay up all night and all morning, because we were the next day. So to get it, I think they found it at 9. And then by the time we got back to it, it was probably 10, 11 o'clock. And that was a tick. And then this is another one, very, very easy to find. I've never had a struggle to find them in Missoul. They were literally falling out of the trees there. The locals were bringing me them. Just one we found. This one we actually found on the first night in that tree. We took it down for some pictures. It had a big rat or something in it. It was in really disturbed habitat. It was all actually banana plantations around that, which is obviously pretty good for rats and stuff that it would be eating. We let it go back in the same tree, and then it stayed in the same branch of the same tree for 7 days. So we stayed there for a week, and then I went and got some shots of it on the last day, still in the same bloody place. Typical green tree python.
I just want to answer many. There's no point in buying one.
I think the funny thing is that you talk to some of the people that work with arboreal vipers, or they've done studies on movements in arboreal vipers, and they, in Thailand and stuff like that, and they can sit in the same tree for a month or 2 months at a time, and maybe move 6 feet.
I think they've got a feed. I think they're pretty active, the green tree pythons, if they haven't had a feed. I think they go up and down a bit and then probably move around. But yeah, that one, because it had a big feed in it, just sat in that tree, so it didn't need to come down at all. I don't think it even come down at night. It just sat digesting that meal.
Yeah.
And how did you get the opportunity to host the Varanid Bowl?
Oh, I sort of got tricked into it by MJ. To be perfectly honest, so he floated the idea around to me, and I was up for doing it, but I wanted a co-host. I was like, I need a co-host to do it. I'm believe it or not, I'm definitely not an extrovert. I hated speaking, especially when I first started doing this. I hadn't done many podcasts. Felt really nervous and stuff about it. I mean, it's a real big thing, as you guys know. Even when you've done a few of them, it's a lot to put yourself out there and talk for a good couple of hours. Bit easier for Scott, I know. But for me and you, Ty, we get nervous. I get nervous the first bit now, even when I do my ones. That first bit where you always fumble it up, like a bit like we did on this one, is the worst. And then once you start getting talking, especially about reptiles, it's fine. But no, going back to that, I floated around. I said to MJ, I want to co-host to do it with me. Then I'll do it no problem, because when you got someone else, it makes it way easier than doing it on your own. Anyway, Peter Fulsham was over here, and he said, and I thought we were going to do a talk with MJ, and then me, I would help MJ basically host it and ask Peter questions. And then it transpired. He's like, no, you do realize you're doing this on, because I sent him some questions to ask for MJ. And then MJ was like, you do realize you're doing this on your own. It's just going to be you and Peter. I was like, oh, okay, yeah, that's fine. I can probably do it with Peter. And then we did that one. And then I was like, it wasn't as bad as I thought. I could probably do it anyway. And, I do enjoy doing them and getting people on and doing it. And then that's how it's worked now. And like I said, MJ's got a really good network, really popular. He's taught me obviously how to use the program and stuff. And then, like I said, we do it every other Saturday. This one's a bit messed up. I've got one tomorrow with Nick Lillis. He's bred peat straight monitors for the first time in 20 years in the USA, which is very, very good accomplishment. And then I've got the trip one that I cancelled because I was in hospital next weekend. But usually it's bi-weekly, which I think is good because.
So what happened with the hospital trip? What was the go there? You said that we were talking about it earlier. Sounds like you had a bit of a rough trot.
Yeah, basically, I this is stupid, but literally the day I got back from that trip to Raja Ampat, I thought I had food poisoning, so I dug out a really old steak in the freezer, and our power goes off all the time. So I was really crook. I was really sick for like 3 days. It turns out, because a week later I got really sick again, but not with, you know, diarrhea and vomiting, like a really, really heavy fever that I thought I'd be able to combat. And then I wasn't drinking enough, and the guys at the farm were coming in and looking in on me, and it's like, Chris, you need to go to hospital at this point, mate. It's like, it's not going away. So I rushed into hospital. As I said to you guys, actually surprisingly good. The reason I didn't want to go to hospital because I thought I'd be in a waiting room like in the UK for 4 hours, and I literally thought if I have to wait with this fever that I've got, I would die. So I'd rather just die in bed. But anyway, got straight into this hospital, really nice, clean hospital. They got me linked up to an IV, started taking bloods and stuff. And then my liver enzymes and my blood work was just completely out of whack. So I got really, really worried. I was like, I've just been to Papua. They were worried because I've just been to Papua. They thought I might have malaria, might have hepatitis or something. A lot of these, you know, diseases you can pick up there. So I ended up staying in hospital for a week. The fever sort of lasted for about 3 days, but all the symptoms were basically for dengue. But dengue's got like 4 different strains, and they needed me in peak fever to do the test they wanted to do. And then the other tests they needed to do, it would have to be weeks afterwards. But they were convinced it was dengue. I think it was dengue fever, just with going on the symptoms and stuff. A bit like I was saying to Ty earlier. As soon as I found out I wasn't hepatitis, which I was most worried about, I was pretty relaxed anyway. Anyway, going through all these tests, I actually found out that food poison I thought it was, I come back positive for norovirus. So I literally got back from Raja Ampat that day and had norovirus. And then 2 weeks later, I had this dengue. So I've been pretty rough for the last 2 weeks. I'm feeling nice and normal. Now it's nice to be healthy. Like I was saying to Ty, into a bit, you don't appreciate how good it feels to not be sick until you've been pretty sick or you've had something wrong. So anyway, I had to cancel that show with Nick and Ryan. So we're doing that one next weekend. But usually my Varanid Vault podcast is every other week.
So you're 100% now? Or you're still a little bit ratchet?
I'm good, but I keep feeling like I'm going to get ill again. I've got like post-traumatic post-traumatic shock or whatever it is. So I feel really good. And it's weird because these sort of virus, that dengue virus, creeps up you on pretty quick. I went out for a smoke. I come back into bed and I started sweating a bit. And then it was very quickly going into a fever. It wasn't like a big build-up you get. So it's like always, is it going to come back or whatever I've got? So I've got that sort of worry at the moment. I'm sure I'll get over it. But I said I'd quit smoking because I didn't smoke for like 2 weeks while I was obviously ill with this. I was like, that's it now. And as soon as I've started feeling better, back on the cigarettes. So I'm feeling all right.
Yes. So sorry, I got completely muddled up there for a second. What's the strangest thing you've seen an animal do?
I think that wiggling stuff with the Hamaziensis was pretty cool. Yeah. I've had like pythons and stuff. It's pretty well documented now. Move their nest boxes around and do that sort of thing. I was trying to think. I can't think. I mean, yeah, that monitor doing that tail wiggle thing took me by surprise. It was the last thing I thought it was going to do was start really wiggling its tail at me. So I was like, that was pretty interesting. But no, I can't think of anything else amazing or groundbreaking. I think the best thing with like the herping and stuff, as you probably guys can attest to, is like when you find something and you know it should be there. Do you know when you find some like good habitat yourself and you're like, there's got to be X, Y, and Z here, and it turns up? That's like one of the coolest things for me. So, and especially when you find your own spots, it's like, I've done that here. So that's pretty cool.
Or lay down your own tin and stuff like that in local parks and whatnot. Not that we do that. Who do you admire most in your professional circle? Do you have any mentors?
I've been pretty lucky throughout my herp career. I've got a female herpetologist, what I want to call her, Dawn Shopland. She's been really helpful for me. She's nurtured me from sort of 13 years old. She was the co-owner of that shop that I worked in. So she's been good. I'd still speak to her now. We have like long chats about reptiles and everything else. So she's really good as a mentor. Obviously, Peter Folsham, he's been really good lately. Bunji's taught me a load of stuff about the outdoor stuff. So I'm like willing to have any information. If it's about reptiles, I'll take it on board. Peter Blake, for example, for the venomous, teaching me how to do that. That was when I was quite young. I was probably only 13 or 14 when I first sort of started learning about venomous. Yep. So yeah, I mean, I've been lucky throughout my career to, you know, I'll listen to everyone, even if it's rubbish half the time, and I'll take it on board. So
yeah.
So other than obviously the All in the Tree monitor podcast, what are your three favourite podcasts that you'd like people to listen to?
That NPR network has got some of the best one. I mean, the boys at NPR, they're like for anyone doing podcasts to be that consistent and that good for that long. I take my hats off to them. I mean, that's the ones I used to drive around when I was an electrician in the van, and they were some of the first ones. So some of the ones on there, the Fight Club one that Justin does, I think is pretty good. It's like a new take. It's something a bit different to your general interview ones. I mean, I listen to podcasts on Royal Pythons just because there'll be some sort of marketing or anything. So, I mean, if you want to be specific, NPR. I did used to listen to, and I don't know why it's dropped off a bit. Justin and the boys, what's that one called?
Herping Culture Network.
Yeah, I used to have. So I used to have
that's still going.
Yeah, I used to have an app on my phone, so I'd get all of them just upload into the app, and then I could just listen to them. And then Google stopped doing the app now, and I obviously have to go on YouTube. So I need to go back. I bet there's probably thousands because those guys are pretty consistent as well. I need to go back and listen. They were always really good. I mean, any reptile podcast, there's so many now. Do you know what I mean? They're all you'll glean a bit of information for anyone. Like I go Westfield. I listened to one on crested geckos the other day. I can't remember who it was. But I'll pick up something, and I'm a geek, so anything reptiles I'll listen to rather than listen to the news or something like that. Animals at Home podcast, he's consistently really good conversations in there. Project Herpetoculture. I mean, I'll just list all of them because I listen to all of them. Do you know what I mean? I think the one that stands the good and warrants the most respect is those NPR boys, just because to do it for 13 years, sometimes, as you guys know, sometimes it's like, do you really want to do a podcast? And you know, to do that for 13 years and keep consistent of it, or however long they've been doing it, I doff my hat.
And I think for the most part, you know, for a long time, those guys were doing it pretty much weekly as well.
Yeah.
Which is insane. Like,
don't look at me. I have no plans to do one.
No, I don't want to do it weekly either.
He didn't want to do it in the first place.
I don't want to do it at all. I don't mind being a guest. I'm not a big fan of doing a bloody thing. But at the same,
and yet no one shuts you up.
At the same time, I mean, Podcast Addict is a really good app to put on your phone.
Which one's that?
Podcast Addict.
Okay.
Right? And that way you can just set them all up, and it works out really well.
That's sort of what I had. I just had the subscriptions going, and then I would type in reptile in the search bar, and then there'd be new ones that come up all the time. But now I'm pretty much just watch the YouTube ones. I've lost my, you know, like that Justin and that one. I listened to that one religiously every week. That was really good, and I haven't listened to that probably for 6 months now, just because it's not on my radar or on my YouTube. So I'll have to seek those guys out and subscribe to their channel. That's the other thing. Can we? I don't know. Is it because it's called subscription, and people think if you subscribe to something you got to pay? But for anyone listening, it really helps all of us guys that do podcasts, and you won't miss a podcast, and it costs all. Like it's completely free. So I don't know why people
Apple actually said they ADHD when I was learning about a podcast, full on hyperfocus. Apple actually, I don't want to say outlawed. What's the correct term?
Paid.
No. Apple actually refused to put anything that was subscription because they thought people had to pay. They made everyone say follow.
Yeah,
that's it. Follow would be so much better. I don't know why YouTube doesn't do that, because I was thinking I was racking my brains. I was like, subscription, everything you ever subscribe to, you got to pay for. That's basically what it is. So I think they're missing a trick there. So, but it's free, guys. All the likes, comments, and subscribe helps everyone that does it. I think it's really good that there's so many people doing podcasts now. There's content for everyone, and like I said, it's a job for us to do it, you know, and to put yourself out there. It's not easy, especially us reptile people. Scott, you don't count because we're very outspoken. People like me and Ty, you know, the first few podcasts, I was worried 2-3 days before I was even on the podcast.
Nervous poos?
I mean, you got just respect everything that people are putting out within reason, as long as it's not stupid, misinformation and just rubbish, venomous fucking free handling videos or whatever. If it's good information that someone's bothered to put the time out there, then give them credit. Hit that bloody subscribe button.
I think they just see this and they don't. It costs us too, to the programs and whatnot, and the time, and it's great when you know the person. You'll chat beforehand and afterwards, and it's usually hours. It's not whatever it is, just the podcast. It is quite time demanding.
Yeah, you got to put getting the pictures up, getting the pictures off the guest, uploading it, so you got a bit of a structure, working the questions out, all that sort of stuff. Do you know what I mean? And then you'll get somebody, oh, that wasn't a very good podcast. Well, do one yourself then.
Yeah.
It's a free country and it allows people to do whatever they bloody want, mate, at the end of the day.
Listen.
See that Manny's asked you a question there, Chris?
Yeah. Did you go? My favourite snake? Probably
green python. That's what MJ makes you say, isn't it?
No, I'm going to get so much shit over the green. I wish I could love them. They're hard to bloody hurt for half the time, but in the places I look for them, and they never turn up when you need to show someone to someone. And then, because we deal with so many of them here, they just become a pain. They're just they're unfortunately a susceptible snake to a lot of ailments. And when you try and do them on the scale we are, you've always got a problem with them somewhere. We've got 150 odd green tree pythons. So there's just a problem with them somewhere along the line. But no, my favourite snake is Somalia classilepus, so the Moluccan scrub python.
Right, okay. Sorry, just getting a spam bot, I think it is, on the bloody thing, so I had to get rid of it.
That's when you know you're doing it properly, mate, when you get the spam bots.
I reckon it's just because we were talking about MJ and the amount of stuff that he does, so it just seemed to bloody follow.
What bit of advice would you give a new keeper?
A new keeper, take it slowly. The amount of questions I get now this is like proper hypocrisy, I guess. I've been doing it a long time. Everyone's first concern now is breeding animals. I come up, like I told you earlier, in the 90s and early 2000s, and the least thing we thought about was breeding stuff, at least the hobbyists. It was learning as much as you can about it, keeping different stuff and getting new different species and learning their different individual niches. And then maybe if you pick one that you're doing really well with, you might start breeding it. The second question now I get after how do I keep this tree monitor is when can I breed it and how do I breed it? I was like, you need to learn way more about just how it acts and how it lives and enjoy how you do. There's so much enjoyment in just keeping this stuff and raising them from a baby and all that sort of stuff. And I know it probably sounds, Chris just doesn't want people breeding monitors, but I think a lot of the, what would you call it? The knowledge, the law or whatever of keeping animals is lost because everyone's first step now is just go straight to breeding. And you can't do that.
We've literally spoke about how to breed these things on the podcast. It's not like we've pretended gone, oh, well, no, you're leaving a particularly crucial step out of it.
No.
I think, though, a lot of people don't realise the money and then go, well, if I get two, boy and a girl, they're going to breed and I'm going to get the money back that I spent on crickets, rodents, electricity, enclosures, etc. And that sort of comes foremost in their train of thought, other than, as you said, enjoying the lizard.
Yeah, I think the problem with the tree monitors is they're a high value item at the moment, so they're almost like an investment priced animal. I think that's how they get seen. I just worry that with the new keepers and stuff, and not just with tree monitors, reading your animal, I can walk around my collection here or so, I can spot, and you guys will be able to do the same. You'll spot that there's something wrong. It might be the most little insignificant thing of just the way that animal's sitting, that it's been in its water bowl now for 2 days, and that's probably mites. Yeah, and there's all this nuances you only get from keeping it, for an extended time and actually being interested in that animal. And the breeding sort of just comes as a part of that later. You can't really breed stuff without. I can tell you exactly what I do to breed stuff, but you won't be able to breed it like I breed my animals because I'll know when to put that animal in there, and that comes with just a length of time and experience of doing it. There's no recipe to breed in this stuff. It's like,
yeah, but even if you do follow the so-called recipe, right? The reality of it is your recipe applies to where you live and where you are. How, the way I was keeping elapids in Victoria is quite different to how I was keeping elapids successfully here in Queensland. So, it
does.
Because
I do all the cleaning.
Yeah. Well, that certainly helps. But yeah, I suppose, there is those variances that are out there too.
I just think there's a big step of enjoyment being missed when you just go from buying an animal to breeding. There's all this bit, especially if you get a baby one, there's all this really enjoyable stuff. And what makes you a good keeper is learning, when your lizard's a bit off or your snake's a bit off, and changing things around, or coming up with ideas. That's like the fun of keeping it. The breeding side, is all spectacular and amazing, but there's like all this knowledge that's getting lost, I find, and nobody reads books anymore. So that's the other thing. So not even getting the knowledge from books. They just want it driven into their head. If people were happy, it seems, if I could just tell them exactly how I do it, and then they'll do it, and then they'll go ask someone else and they'll tell them exactly how they do it. And then you realize when you start speaking to multiple people, everyone does it different, and there isn't a set rule that everyone wants. Just like you were saying, Scott, I do stuff completely different to Brian in America, who's just as successful as me, breeding tree monitors. It's just the way it is. So.
And I think no one looks at not no one, but new keepers, for the most part, don't look at the natural habitat.
And that's like the most enjoyable bit. And that's another thing I wanted to bring up is, if you're really into this, there's nothing better than going out. I mean, especially like the Australian stuff on your doorstep. And obviously we've probably got a lot of Australian listeners. You've got some of the easiest and best herping for the species that you keep. I mean, you can go and find a Stimpson's python in Western Australia pretty easy and learn so much about what it's doing and all that sort of stuff. So if you're really into it, instead of buying, the next bloody albino spotted python or whatever the hype is at the moment, and that's probably dating myself a bit.
Oh, you're up on morphs, aren't you?
Yeah. Well, that was a big thing probably 20 years ago, but they're everywhere now. But yeah, instead of spending that money, just do a little terp trip somewhere, and you'll gain so much more respect for the animal and knowledge from the animal doing that than you will buying the next new morph or the next new species. So that's my big thing.
T. McMaster's got a question that we've just thrown up there. What's the most common mistake people make when keeping tree monitors? That they're not made out of porcelain?
Yeah, probably not buying captive bred. Again, they should all be captive bred anyway, but we know they're not. They're different lizard if they're captive bred to the imports you see probably usually in the States and stuff like that. They're completely different. I'm trying to think of anything. I mean, they're really bulletproof if they're captive bred. They're a fucking nightmare if they're wild caught, and that's why they weren't established for so long, because they are a nightmare. Dehydrated, they're rubbish. If you get a captive bred one, they're probably as easy as an Aki, as long as you got your parameters right. They're not a difficult species for sure.
So do you think that's what the issue with bogart eye is? Is that the issue with bogart eye? Is that why there's none of them around? Because there's no captive bred ones. So
they're from Papua New Guinea, so I just don't think you're allowed to export them.
Yeah,
I don't know. They're from Ferguson and stuff. There might be some floating around. I was speaking to Nick and Ryan, and they said it's not as strict as Australia. There's been some exports of some Papuan stuff, so they do allow some exports. Again, not to go back into it, you guys allow some exports of some of your animals, your fishes and stuff. I just don't think anyone's bothered to do it. Maybe. So yeah. I'm trying to think of anything else. They're just so easy when they're captive bred. I'll probably just overfeed him with rodents, quail, because they do love it. They will get fat, and they're definitely not eating loads of rodents and stuff in the wild. You can use it to your advantage with cycle feeding when you're breeding them. But if I was raising up stuff that's not being bred, it would just be 100% insects with, occasional pinky mouse or something like that, maybe every few months.
Are there any exciting projects you have coming up that you can tell our listeners about? Sorry.
Watch my podcast and you'll find out.
No. There's loads I can't speak about that are really exciting. But like I said, I'm in this weird situation now of other farms just going and smashing these populations of stuff that worries me. And some of these species I'm working from are from tiny little islands. So I'm captive breeding. I've just got a clutch of 2 off the one I'm really excited about, which 2's better than none. But when I get like a good number of them and I can release them to the market, and then people won't want, see, that's the other thing we've got going on. People won't want the wild caught ones if there is captive bred ones. So I'm always challenging that round. I've posted a few things. There's that black Indicus that's really interesting. That's like a locality of Indicus. So we've been raising some of those up, and then they're just at breeding age now. I don't know, really. Just everything's pretty cool. There's nothing. So the coffee owl, I got a really good collection of coffee owl green tree pythons now, my favorites. So to be able to get them back to the market, actual real true coffee owls, and hopefully people appreciate them and don't mess up all my grievance and blood, sweat and tears and crossing.
I'm sure Ryan will appreciate the fact that you've got some coffee oils that are actually caping. So
yeah, well, I think he hates them. He loves green tree pythons, but I think he got rid of his coffee owls because apparently the babies are an absolute fucking nightmare to feed. And he said,
yeah, real small too, or something. I think from memory.
Yeah, really flighty, really small. You've got a guy in Australia actually that does well with them. I think is it Darren Boswell?
Yeah, or his might be his son actually.
Oh, it's his son. Yeah. He seems to be doing it, and he hasn't. I don't think he's had any problems with feeding them. So it's like anything. I think you get some dodgy clutches, and Ryan had a really bad one. But that's the next challenge with green trees. I mean, we're a bit more lucky here. We've got some skink species that we can use to get them going. So.
Yeah. Have you ever witnessed or experienced misogyny throughout your career? And in your opinion, what can be done to stamp it out?
No. I haven't. I spoke to you about this before, Ty. I was really surprised when you come up, like when you were telling me about it. Basically, obviously, I've got Dawn, who's like my mentor, and I think I said last time I spoke to you guys, I think on my podcast, I should speak to Dawn maybe, because she's really the only other female keeper I know. And Julian, my friend, his wife's a female keeper, but unfortunately, maybe this is misogynistic of me. I've never actually asked them, do you feel? Is there any prejudice or anything like that? But it's stupid if there is. I mean, women make way better keepers than men for a lot of animal species, probably reptiles included. Just the way that women think and how relaxed and how unaggressive and less wound up they get with that, than men do. We get pretty wound up pretty quick, especially if something's not eating. My mum is a really good example. She used to help me run that shop, and she would sit there with some those Antaresia species that I was done with. I was like, I don't care anyone. She would sit there for hours, really methodically going on feed, and she'd get them bloody feeding, and I would have given them up on ages ago. So no, I'm pretty disgusted. Awesome. I don't think there's enough real reptile people as it is. So I think we need a bigger community that will probably help us in the future with, against the more people there are, hopefully the less easy it is to take this away from us. And like a reptile person to me is a reptile person. I don't care if you're trans, bi, whatever you want to be. If you want to
got between your legs,
I'm all about it.
Yeah, definitely. What should we read out Manny's question?
Oh, you can read that one.
Oh, good God. Okay, excuse me. I need new glasses. Do you think there will be a stage where people like yourself can make these small tree monitors so accessible in the market that there will no longer be a need for wild caught to be sold? And if so, do you think it would negatively impact? This is why I don't like live, and I gave you so much shit.
Impact the small villages that somewhat have learned to rely on the trade to substitute their allowances. So maybe not so much with tree monitors because they're not able to export the wild caught ones, but with some of the other wild caught stuff that's out there.
Like I said, I have to caveat this of all the tree monitors we send out of the farm are F2 captive bred, and that's what that is the rules from CITES of everything. Whether that happens or whether it doesn't, I'm not going to say, but you can put your head together and say that does happen. And obviously, I go to Amdui, for example. They're heavily reliant on blue tree monitors, which aren't protected, so they're legally they're not actually doing anything wrong. For some reason, blue tree monitors never actually got protected. They were named off not on the list. And the worry, for example, with them is the next resource for them is cutting the trees down. So then you're going to lose the tree monitors and the thing. I think there should probably be, there sort of is a quota system anyway. I mean, it's a really, really difficult one. I would love to get to the stage where we can supply the other farms. I don't know if that's possible because they should be breeding themselves. So them buying off us, I don't know if that's even legal. I wouldn't even want to comment on that. I would like to be able to have enough available on the market that the other farms would just give up. Maybe it would be the perfect thing. If we get to the stage where I'm able to produce enough tree monitors, and then you've got other people, Brian and Brandon and other people producing them in, Europe and Canada and the States, and people just don't bother looking at the, whatever you want to call, so say maybe wild caught ones or the rougher looking F2 ones or whatever there is. So yeah, that would be great. I think we'll get there, to be honest. The thing with Indonesia, we've got a quota system even for captive bred. So I'm limited. Even if I produced 200 of them, I've got a quota on some of the species of 50. So we have to be careful. So that is sort of what the Indonesian government's put into place. They haven't put a wild caught quota on them to be able to be collected from the wild because they obviously don't agree with that. But they've said, right, some of you guys might not be doing it properly. We can't police it as well as we'd want to. So we're giving you a quota of your captive bred stuff. And that's across all species as well. That's even the pythons and stuff like that. And some of those quotas are pretty low. I mean, the similest quota we had last year, I think, was about 20 animals, and I've produced nearly 120 last year. So I need to have a chat. I need to have a chat with the government to say, look, I can prove these are the eggs. I've kept all the eggs and everything to say, look, you need to up our quota on this species because I can prove, or can you at least add on what stock I've got that I can prove to next year's quota. So there is a bit of room for movement in that. But yeah, I mean, the captive bred ones, honestly, not just because I breed captive bred ones, are a completely different lizard to a wild caught one, which I have to deal with. I found in stock wild caught. So if I could just even get to the stage here where absolutely everything is captive bred, it'll be perfect for me. And that's sort of what we're doing. We're holding back a lot of the tree monitors that I've bred now and raising those ones up. They've been doing that previous, but yeah, hopefully one day we'll have all the stock will be F2, F3, F4.
While you're maintaining the lines, are you trying to do a bit of line breeding in those animals for higher levels of blue or higher levels of yellow or green or anything like that?
Yeah. I mean, I'm in a unique position. We've got 250 tree monitors here. So I've got the pick of every single color, pattern, any sort of expression you can see. And we can keep them genetically diverse. Like I've got probably the best looking Risingri in the world. I've got some that are lemon yellow, but I haven't just got one of them. I've got 20 of them. So,
rub it in.
Yeah, I know. Proper bragging now, but this is this is the sort of levels we're working at, and sort of setting us apart from the other farms and some of the other breeders and stuff. So yeah, it's you can line breed so far, but you have to go back because you're going to get problems. But we're in quite a unique situation to be able to do that. But yeah, I'm trying to get those yellow ones to be as yellow as the adults, because often the adults can be yellow and then you produce the babies and they're not as yellow. So I've sort of started what I call a lemon line. Very cliche, I know. But yeah, really, I mean, you see the ones I've got here, they are lemon yellow. They're just crazy. They're just luminous yellow. You couldn't get any yellow if you wanted to, but reproducing that is not as easy as you think. Just because you've got two yellow ones doesn't mean you're going to have yellow babies. You need to keep, repeating those genes into it. That I need to work out that, especially for the book I'm writing, I need to work out that greenback morph of the Macraei, just to see what's going on with that, if it's polymorphic or if it's true exanthic or what's going on. And I think that'd be quite interesting, especially with that wild population. I mean, if it is that and it is a favorable trait, will we see them go completely green again rather than blue? And then, yeah, I mean, there's so much work. We're right at the infancy with the tree monitors of there's been no line breeding done at all. People have just been happy, and myself included, to get two together and produce some more. But like I said, I'm in a unique situation now where I can, do a few more of these projects and get this line breeding done while still keeping, just some normal stuff.
So we do a little segment called 60 Seconds Under the Basking Spot.
I'm worried about this.
Publicly, I can't display my sense of humour. You'll be fine. Are you an early bird or a night owl?
I'm doing rubbish at this at the moment. I can be both. I can stay up all night long, and I can get up early if I need to. I don't really like getting up early. I don't know. Overall, I have to beat the heat here. And this is not quick 60-second one, is it? I'm an early riser now because I got to beat the heat of Indonesia.
Would you rather have more time or more money?
Time for sure. I don't know. That's not even a question, is it?
Do you sleep with the fan on or off?
Off. I've got windows at the moment, but I do have aircon. But I don't like.
Did you learn about the Mozzies?
Yeah, I know. I don't know that aircon. As you guys know, we don't have aircon in the UK. We don't fucking need it.
Yeah.
That aircon dries you out if you leave that on. It can be lovely to go to sleep. If you wake up pretty rough and your throat's pretty and you don't seem to get that with the window. So I'm trying the windows, and I'll probably end up with bloody dengue or malaria again.
Tidy or messy?
I like to think myself is tight. I've got like a touch of OCD if I start doing it. Do you know what I mean? I can live with mess, but if I start tidying up, everything's got to be perfect. So I'm not very good at these questions, guys. They're not very concise. I'm going to say tidy because I like it to be tidy.
Are you a planner or do you prefer spontaneity?
I plan a lot. Yeah.
Right answer.
Are you an optimist or a realist?
I'm a pessimist usually.
That's all right. That works.
That works.
I'm bad. Yeah, I'm pretty bad, especially with breeding stuff and everything like that. It's the end of the world until it goes right. So yeah, I'd say I'm a realist, definitely. Yeah.
Realist. See the movie or read the book?
I'll read a book for sure. Yeah, I especially don't like going to the cinema. People invite me to the cinema all the time. That is like the worst thing I can think of doing. I like films, but not sitting in a cinema for sure.
Coffee or tea?
I was coffee, and now I'm on tea since being in the hospital because that's all I had. So I've got a taste for tea, and I'm British, so it should be tea. But I like both. But at the moment, tea.
I go coffee, and I'm British.
Well, the problem over here is the coffee is full of sugar. I've got one here, and it's like 3 cups of tea with sugar, and it's probably one of them. But this is like crack. This is really good.
That's another podcast, that is. Do you prefer a backyard barbecue or dinner at a restaurant?
Oh, barbecue for sure.
Are you a risk taker or are you conservative?
I'm a risk taker, I think, especially with what I've done in the recent years. Big risk coming over here.
Android or Apple?
Android. I don't know what you're playing around with Apple. I've convinced Nick Mutton that he needs to get rid of his Apple phone.
Good work. Good work.
And finally, does pineapple go on a pizza?
I'll eat it. I'm not fussed. I'm probably not. I wouldn't order it, but I have eaten it on a pizza and I haven't gone, oh, that's the worst thing ever. I watched the bloody Yanks put jam, as I'd call it, jelly, they'd call it, and peanut butter together, and I find that far more disgusting than. I mean, I'll eat pineapple on pizza. I refuse to eat or even try peanut butter and jelly. Whatever they were calling it.
I do have an additional question to 60 seconds under the barking spot. Who's the better singer, Nick or Ryan?
Do you know what? Nick was really trying hard and was good. I had Ryan sweating. I knew they did this karaoke in Sarong because I've been there and listened to other idiots do it. I'd never done it myself. Yeah. And I knew I'd be able to get him to do it. I know the girl there pretty well. Even if it wasn't karaoke night, I knew it would be karaoke night. And Ryan had been singing the whole trip. And on the final few days, I go, Ryan, there's a karaoke in Strong. I'm signing you up, mate. And I don't think he believed me or think it was possible. And I was really giving him some jip. I was like, you better pick your song out, mate. Nick was up for it anyway. Nick was like, I'll do it. And I'll make a twat myself. So Ryan's got some awful pictures of me. I cannot sing, but I will do it just for the crack. But I was super happy that Ryan just did it because, you know, he's not that type of person.
And he's a bit of an introvert.
Yeah. Funny enough, me and Nick would, you know, at the table, oh yeah, should we go and get and do it? And Ryan stupidly went up to the woman and actually asked her. I said we want to do karaoke, and she said, yeah, come and tell me when you're ready. I think Ryan got so annoyed with me and Nick saying, oh, should we do it? Should we do it? That he
just went and did it.
Yeah, he just went and did it. So and like I said, you got Maverick and Goose there now, and that down. So no, it's a good crack, and I mean, we cleared the whole place out. Not that it was busy anyway, and we did get some Indonesians say, "Oh, good job." Not the singing that was any good. We can tell you've had some beers and you look like you're having fun.
And that's all that matters.
Yeah, I mean, Ryan wanted to go look for Papuan pythons on that last night in Sarong. I was like, no, you're doing karaoke. So,
do you want to read out Manny's last question?
Honestly, it's too bloody long. We'll get to that one another time. The export law. He's just asked. Sorry, mate, I'll put it up. He's asking about export laws being stringent over there. What are the import laws like? Is it easy enough to import stuff into Indonesia?
Yeah, dead easy, really easy. Super. We've got for example, Varanid Cumming, which are obviously Philippines, which you're not allowed to export from the Philippines. They were captive bred in Germany, so we've imported them from Germany with legal CITES, and now we can actually export them just like you would be able to any sort of other country. So yeah, we're not that strict. We have got some bans on some stuff. So you're not allowed any caimans, and you're not allowed any anacondas to be imported because they're worried about the invasive stuff. And I think they've banned iguanas now as well in Indonesia, so you can't import that stuff. So they're pretty strict on some of it.
You see some of that stuff in Bali, though. Like they're keeping anacondas in Bali. They're keeping.
That's really recent. The anaconda one. So they've been allowed in, and then somebody said, yeah, they've probably done a little bit of research and said, yeah, this is probably not a good idea. Or
so I think they're still allowed to keep them, and allowed to breed the ones they've got. They're just not allowed to import anymore.
That's it. Yeah.
What's the one takeaway you want the audience to get from this episode?
I think I already went through it. I got a really cliche one. I sound awful, but dreams do come true. I'm living the dream now, and as little as big as it is, you might have to. I've made some serious sacrifices coming over here, but so far it's been worth it. So never give up on your dreams, however big or small that is. That's a cliche rubbish one. The big one we spoke about is get out and do some herping. If you're serious, like a serious reptile keeper, and you consider yourself a serious reptile keeper, you need to get out and do some herping if you haven't. Like, stop spending money on whatever it is. And if you're a real reptile keeper, you need to see at least one of the species you keep in the wild. And then I think you become like that's like the next level, if you want to call that. Like that's the people I like having conversations with. You know, I'll speak to keepers all day long, and the ones that have gone out and seen them in the wild, that's the ones you can have the really, really in-depth good conversations with.
Is there anything we haven't covered that you'd like to say before we close out?
When are you going to get some Glebo Palmer? Can you keep Glebo Palmer in your state?
Yes. Yeah, we can.
And no excuse. Forget all the Prasinus and all that other rubbish. I want to see Scott and Ty Iper with some Glebo Palmer, just selfishly, so I can visit and live.
That'll get you out here, sure.
I would love to keep Glebos, that's for sure. So, yeah. All right. Is there anything else? Sorry. Where can we find you? Where can our listeners find you? Sorry.
Yeah. This is. I sound like a right moany git now. I've definitely been doing this podcast too long. I don't want to offend people, but the best thing if you're into reptiles and you want to speak to me about reptiles is add me on Instagram, which is rarereptiles_and_Prastasi. I get millions of friend requests on Facebook, which I just don't even. I've got over 300 of them now, and I don't even bother looking at them. So if you've added me on Facebook and you're upset that I haven't got to you or I haven't read your message or whatever, it's because even though it links across the Instagram stuff, I probably will make that more of a personal page with less reptiles on it. I might even stop taking, the link of the Instagram to the Facebook, because I'm hoping people will jump across to the Instagram, and then I can keep all that stuff on there and keep the family side and the stuff that I'm doing over here with my actual friends on Facebook. So yeah, if you want to do any of the reptile stuff or any questions or anything like that, I'm always open, but get to me on Instagram because I'll just ignore you on Facebook.
All right, we'll make sure that link goes in the comments.
Yeah.